house. And
Yeah, I think I've been over there. I've been over there a lot, so.
They just started that after they finished. It's nice, don't get me wrong. I wish they'd do the whole street, but they haven't finished it all. They'll do it to 28, but it's become that section of the road. It seems like it's a drag strip for the kids now out there. I'm afraid they want to run their ATVs plus go-karts. Somebody will hit.
Well, if you do see those, please call 911 because ATVs are illegal in the city.
Yes, they
can't
are.
be On city streets, so we do have illegal vehicles that we're trying to enforce. That it's
And
kind of happened all over.
It's rather toned down a lot since it does go on.
Yeah. Be out there and, enforcing the area, like I said, it is getting warmer, so with the warm weather, you're gonna see a lot more people out on the roadways.
Is that station gonna be moving soon?
Yes, we are building a new station over, actually by Northwest High School. The scheduled date is 2027, early spring, April timeframe, so.
And then I am on, out of Patrol North, I have 48 and 49B, basically 135 to the river, roughly 13th Street, all the way to Valley Center. A lot of area there.
Basically, brand new, this first meeting I've been to. I moved here from Colorado. Moved here from Aurora, Colorado. So we have such a high crime rate. It's really bad here, this and that. I come from an area. Really bad. For example, we had over 20,000 vehicles stolen last year in Colorado. You've had basically 2,800 or something like that stolen out of the Wichita area. I am on Nextdoor, and it's a small group now, but I do a group that's called Stolen and Vandalized Vehicles in Wichita. I ran the same group and actually still running it in Colorado. And I do with my group is I give advice, and it doesn't cost anything. I give advice on what to do to keep your car from being stolen, advice as to what to do when your car is stolen. I give advice and what you do after you get your car recovered, if you're lucky enough to do that. The statistics are still basically the same. 85% of all stolen vehicles are used in the commission of another crime. Doesn't change much from there. Difference that I'm seeing here over Colorado is here you arrest people that steal cars. Colorado, you go, you shouldn't do that. We're going to chances. Wants to join that group, it's on Nextdoor, and again, it's called Stolen and Vandalized Vehicles in Colorado. So it's not just about stolen vehicles, it's about vandalized vehicles. And I also give a lot of information on situational awareness, because I had a very dear friend that she and her daughter I've known since the daughter was little. And they were involved in a carjacking that went wrong, and her 21-year-old daughter was murdered. So strong situational awareness as well as what to do. And you'd be surprised. People say, oh, buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. It's one of those things where, if somebody wants your car bad enough, they don't care. They're going to take your vehicle.
Thank you so much for sharing that with everyone so they can join that group if you. So
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you guys have any other questions or any other questions?
I got one.
Okay, sure.
So nationwide, if you believe anything in the news, have a lot of trouble recruiting new And the numbers that you guys share with us indicate that something must be different here. What we're doing different and how we become more effective, because it's always a positive recruitment and graduation number.
You know, that's a tough question. I wish I knew the answer completely, but like, my brother-in-law's a state trooper, so like, you know, we talk and discuss about, you know, recruiting and things like that. So we do feel that support. We appreciate everyone, you know, when they come up to us and say, thank you for your service. This is a very tough job, you know, and
Yeah.
you have to have the right person, you know, for this job. Our recruitment, you know, our recruitment team has been actively working. I think that's a big key part of it, you know. We're broadcasting on social media, they're reaching out, go to career fairs, not even just around locally. We try to, you know, pull in from outside, you know, whether it be like outside the state, things like that, because we're competing with a lot of other agencies. And that's the biggest part. So the biggest thing is we're trying to stay competitive, and the city's been allowing us to do that because all of you guys have been helping us with that support. So.
Also, your next academy starts in
Yeah.
January. For you.
If I were 30 years younger, 40 years younger, I might think about it.
Next academy.
Someone else had their hand up.
Be safe out there.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Carson?
Shell Firehouse 3 up near 32nd Broadway, which if anybody didn't know, there is a fire station next to Boots. It's overlooked pretty often. As far as District 6 activities go, I didn't really find anything to really list specific, so I want to talk about a couple broad topics. The first being, we had tragedy in the west side of the city today. A gentleman was tree trimming and got next to some high voltage wires and he passed as a result of those injuries. Around District 6, especially here in the north end, we have a lot of older trees. And typically when we have high wind events or storms, we have a lot of down wires. So what I'd like to share is any down wires, regardless of what you think they are, stay away from them. Call us. Typically, they'll respond to fire truck out, maybe even the police department, so we can maintain scene safety. Live wires, they may look like they no longer have voltage, but they will go through phases where they will get back on and they can jump and whip and move a lot of different further than you think they can. So we have actually had people come in contact the wires. Fortunately, they were not live. I've seen with my own eyes, people pick them up out of the street, move them. I would advise you to do that. There's obviously protocols and procedures for a reason. So keep that in mind as we keep having these wind events, and being that we're in Kansas, we're at 40 mile an hour wind on any given day. If you notice something that's causing you concern, try Evergy first, unless it is a down wire, then call 911. If you have maybe a tree branch that's arcing on the line, Evergy's your first call. They might respond to this as well. We do work hand in hand with Evergy and our utility companies. We have a major gas leak. We're also there to make sure that we mitigate the gas leaks that could be going through homes. It can travel underground to get into homes. So we do work hand in hand with them and know a lot of the procedures.
Is it a city ordinance that you can't fire pit or burn or get 15 miles an hour?
We're getting there. Give me time. So the next topic. I will tell you that with off the top of my head, I'm not going to give you the exact restrictions and what that entails, but I will tell you, you can go to wichita.gov, and rather than trying to navigate to the fire page and tell you all the lists, I would search outdoor burning, and it should pull up the restrictions and the ordinances. There's a variety of things that have to be in place for somebody to be able to burn outdoors, excuse me. It has to be natural. So anything that comes out of a tree, minus the you can't burn leaves. Go to a lot of nuisance calls for outdoor burning, leaves, concerns about if this gets away from them. The fire pit has to have a spark arrestor on it. Now, I will tell you some of the workarounds on that. We cannot extinguish a ceremonial fire, and we cannot extinguish outdoor fires that are used for cooking. There's obviously caveats to everything. So if we do feel like there's a safety concern, we're allowed to extinguish the fire. I will tell you, people get upset, just like when the police department arrives. People are usually pretty happy to see us. We like to keep it that way. So if we show up and you called in a neighbor for burning, if the wind's over a certain mile per hour, and again, it's in the ordinance, we can extinguish that fire. We are allowed to use our judgment. And so we're try to use the best judgment to make sure that we don't create a whole neighborhood problem, but also maintain the safety of the community.
I had that happen with my neighbor.
Sure. And a lot of people in here probably have a lot of those concerns. The north end, we have a lot of people that burn trash. And I completely understand. Usually I'll give them an opportunity to rectify the situation personally. And if they can't handle it, then I have to step up and be an adult and I'll handle it.
Got some massive tree trunks in my backyard. Only this far out of the ground. But I was going to drill, well, I've already
I know
drilled.
where you're going. In the fire pit. And there's even restrictions in the ordinance to how large the logs can be themselves.
Okay,
So that way we don't have a fire that's burning hours upon hours.
okay.
I have a suggestion for it. You've already got the holes drilled. You could go to a garden center, and I can't remember, it starts with a T. There's a chemical you can pour in those holes. You say this?
Tordon.
Yeah. It'll cause that stump to rot out a lot faster.
That will get- that will
Works.
kill it.
Or you create a mushroom garden.
Yeah.
McLean Boulevard. And we get a lot of people burning, camping and burning in the woods along McLean Boulevard, along the river at McLean Boulevard. And so we had smoke billowing, a bonfire over on the opposite side, on the east side of the river, north of Botanica, in that near the housing development. And we had smoke pouring over the neighborhood to the west, just making a horrible pollution problem. So, and I wasn't aware of the fact that there was another fire going on the west side of the river, but I couldn't see it because it was down the bank. I called the fire department and them off. I said, I just want to make a tip. So I tipped them off. They, rather than just quietly showing up with a small fire extinguisher and take care of the issue, they show up with multiple engines. And the minute these people heard the fire brigade coming, they shut their fires down. So when the firemen got there, they wouldn't roll down the windows to smell the smoke. They couldn't see the fires. I pulled up next to them in my car and was honking my horn, trying to point to where it was. And they wouldn't roll down their window and listen to me. And they drove up, and we know the fires are back up again, big bonfire going on both sides of the river. So my suggestion is that when you get a tip like that, before it becomes an emergency, just quietly maybe send up a pickup with a
Understand your
what
frustration.
you're doing isn't effective. So regardless of.
I'm
what
sorry,
say,
would you let the fireman finish his statement, please? Thank you.
Understand your frustration. Part of what we do, in that enforcement, because homeless encampments obviously in the city of Wichita are a hot button topic. We deal with as much as PD does for that reason. A lot of nuisance burning, lots of time, they're warming fires. We do have things about in the ordinances about warming fires as well. Some of those are permitted, but you'd be surprised. Some of these homeless encampments are very advanced. They'll have fire pits or fire pits that would meet most of the ordinances. If they're trying to warm themselves and it's -10 degrees outside, typically you don't extinguish those fires unless you know it's going to cause a danger to the community and the public. The smoke, smoke nuisance, okay? That is a reason why we can put a fire out. Typically, fires like that put off a lot of smoke when people are burning leaves, especially wet leaves. So the fire itself isn't a danger, the smoke is a nuisance. We get people that will call in these fires because they have asthma. It's creating a breathing difficulty. We put these fires out for a reason. When you approach the fire trucks, since we respond a certain way, and some of that's out of our control. Our 911 dispatch center has just implemented a new dispatching protocol, and it goes through a multi-part process that determines what units are going to dispatch. So your tip is implemented differently through dispatch And then we receive that dispatch, and when we respond according to our dispatch. We don't get to pick and choose the units we go to. So if it's dispatch is a larger fire than it is, we're gonna respond that way just in case, because we would rather err on the side of caution than be underprepared. Then when we're at the scene trying to mitigate the alarm, we get information from a computer screen inside of our rig, and we also have radios that are going back amongst the conversation that's going on inside the cab. So it's not that maybe they were blowing you off per se when you pulled up there and were trying to get their attention. It's that they were trying to interpret 7 different things all at once. Because I know as a company officer on the rig, it can get really chaotic very quickly. So some is trying to mitigate all these different factors. And then we also know where a lot of these homeless encampments are. Now granted, they've been mitigating them, and so the Great Migration happens. They kick them out of Riverside Park and they end up in Oak Park. Or they go from Oak Park and they go further north. So it's kind of a cat chasing its tail at that point. But if we can get to the fire, find the fire, and it may have been a case where they found the other fire and thought that's the one that got called in, because I will also freely tell you, sometimes the information that goes through dispatch is a game of telephone. They get us that information and they may have 5 callers on the same fire. So 5 different call takers, dispatchers are taking that information, trying to input it into the call. Then we have several lines of information and try to go off of to decide for where do we need to be. So please don't take it as we were blowing you off or not trying to be attentive to you. We're trying to mitigate the situation the best way we can.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Good response. Thank you.
Any other questions? So much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Kelly, I'm the branch manager here at the Evergreen Library and also down the street at the Angelo Library. So for those of you who maybe this is your first DAB meeting and you haven't heard me talk about great library stuff before, this year is the library's 150th anniversary. Has been in operation for 150 years. So we're doing things all throughout the year. Events, we've got some new technology that we're hoping soon, as well as we launched a new logo last week. So if you go and you visit our website or you check out, so you can see it in lots of different places. So if you need to get a new library card or your library card is expired, you can get a new library card for free. You can pick one with a new logo on it. Last week was Screen-Free Week, so it's an initiative that invites families to have fun and connect more by doing things either out in the community or at home, but just so we had some events, session for parents, and also a screening of the film Social Dilemma, which is kind of about the topic of social media and some of its ills. It was projected, not shown on TV, so that's how we got around that. And we're also, we had a, and if you haven't picked up your bingo card, there is still time. So if you do the activities and get a bingo on the card, you'll be entered to win a family pass to Exploration Place. So you can pick those up at the front. The big exciting thing that we're gearing up for is the summer reading program, which starts next week on May 21st. This year's theme is Unearth, interpreting as all things dinosaurs and archaeology. So we've got some really excited kiddos. What we do every year for the summer reading program is we have reading challenges that we encourage kids to participate in. So starting on May 21st, we'll have reading logs that kids can pick up, and they can set a reading goal, complete their reading for a prize. The prizes this year, like last year, are books. So we have books for all different age ranges, not library books, but for what. And then we also have a number of locations around the city have donated different types of coupons for like free personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut, free sandwich at Chick-fil-A, stuff like that. So we have coupon packs for all the kids to pick up as well. And then for the older kids, the K through teens, they also get entered into some grand prize drawings that we'll have at the end. The other exciting thing about the summer reading program, aside from just having kids come in and encouraging them to read, is that we do a ton of youth programs all summer. So we do youth programs all the time, but in summer we go really hard. We have kids programs almost every week because the kids are out of school, and we're trying to give kids and families something to do and keep them engaged all summer long. So the other thing that you can pick up on May 21st, in addition to reading log, is we will have calendars that list all of our youth programs specifically, so that you can find the ones that at locations all across the system, including here at Evergreen. If you want more information about the summer reading program, we do have a page on our website now. It's all up-to-date information. You can take a look at the reading logs and the challenges and stuff. It's just wichitalibrary.org/summerreading. So this is a partnership with United Way, and it's designed to help second and third grade readers to improve their reading skills. And so they get paired up with an adult reading partner, and so they come in every week and they read with their partner, and they practice reading. And the adult volunteers who are part of the program are taught about like literacy techniques and kind of tutoring kids on literacy. And then if they keep coming every week and complete their reading goals at the end of the summer, they get prizes. So we did this last summer at Angelo and Walters, and it was really successful. And so some more branches this year. So Rockwell, Westlink, Walters, Angelo, and the Advanced Learning Library are all going to have summer literacy league.
Adults get signed up to do this.
Yes, so it is a program through the United Way. So if you reach out to them, you can probably just call 211 and get hooked up to that program. Yep. Providing locations, and then we also have a specific volunteer who's going to be our summer literacy coordinator, summer literacy league coordinator, and so to the volunteers, making sure they're coming, coordinating the prizes, that kind of thing. So that's Summer Literacy League. And then another thing that we launched recently is the Civic Action Passports. So you may have seen those sitting out on the table as you came in. All of you are clearly civic-minded people because you're coming. The idea behind the Civic Action Passports is partnership, not just the library, but with the city of Wichita and some other groups as well, to try to give people ideas for ways that they can get involved in their community. And there's different activities for each category that you can do. If you activity in each category, then you can turn in your Civic Action Passport. We don't keep it, we let you keep it. Pin, a cool City of Wichita pin. Of the activities that is on the passport, so you've already got one category done. There are like attending library programs. There's some educational pieces, different websites that you can visit. I've been kind of working on mine, and one of the activities to find out about local different stuff. So definitely check those out if you're interested. And then finally, as always, we'll end with going on at your local library at the Evergreen. So we've got some programs coming up this month. Tomorrow evening, board games, which is a super fun program where we have team volunteers who come in and they may. And there's different games and they teach you how to play, and you can just play games. Members of the community. We'll and Spanish, so that's a bilingual program. We continue to have Checkmate. That's going to be this Thursday from 6 to 7. So if you're into chess and you want to play chess with people in the we have a rock painting program for adults on Friday, May 22nd from 3 to 4:30. We're doing our summer reading program kickoff on Thursday, May 28th from 4 to 7. So we're going to have themed activities all throughout the library. So that'll be a fun thing to bring kiddos to. We put We always do that towards the end of the school year, and then our regular Cuentos story times are gonna resume on June 4th, so those will start up again. We are having a computer basics course on file management. That's gonna be on June 4th at 2:30. Another one, Rebecca Ramos, a curator at KU Spencer Research Library. She's gonna come out on on June 5th, and she is going to talk about the new Latino collection. They are like actively looking for people to donate to. So she's gonna talk about how they're looking for so that we can preserve that history. She will be presenting in English and in Spanish. The English presentation is at 1 and the Spanish presentation is at 1:50. And then we also have, we're trying a fun thing this year. We do a lot of book swap events. And typically those are aimed at adults. So if you are an adult and you're like, I've got all these books and I've read them already and I want to swap. You can come to those. We're trying a youth book swap. So if you are a parent and your kid has all these books and they've aged out of them, they've read those books already, they want new books. We're going to be doing a book swap that's specifically for youth books. You can come in and get them new stuff. That's going to be Saturday, June 6th from 2:30 to 4. And then the last thing about programs I just wanted to mention is that we have, the city of Wichita has an Evolve Guide. If you have seen that before, the Evolve Guide has all of the programs that the city does, all the stuff at the rec center, all of the library stuff, all of the Mark Arts programs. It's all in one place, in one brochure. And those are available at every library. We just got the stuff for everything that's happening in June, July, and August. So if you want to pick one of those up on your way out, they have them digitally as well, but we have them. And those go like hotcakes. So that's why I'm letting you all know we have the summer one. So if you're interested in that, pick one up before we get out. And that's all I've got. Any questions for me? That's all I've got.
Awesome. Any questions? Awesome. Thank you.
At the public portion of this agenda, there were no scheduled items. Do we have anybody present who would like to speak on an off-agenda topic? That means any item that's not part of the agenda already.
Yes.
When I come up, you do have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record. That is correct.
Worthington Fowler. I live at 541 North Sarah. Zoning change is on zone 204. It was evidently before this, we were to be at a meeting on March 26th with, not with you guys, with the MAPC. We all went to that meeting. That was deferred to the next meeting because the person
What's
that.
zoning case number?
2026 000.
On today's
Zoning,
Oh, it's a PUD.
yeah,
Okay.
that's not, because we were looking at it. We were told to come back to the next meeting, which we all did, and that meeting was on April 23rd or something like that. To this zoning change that we needed to do a petition, petitions. I have several that the neighbors have signed. We did bring those down to your office, Maggie, a while back. Definitely told, since this has already been heard by you guys, can't discuss it tonight, because we cannot. We've got 5 people that would like to discuss it, but we are opposed to the zoning change. That area has been a residential zoned area for 50-some years. There are several people that own their own homes, owner occupant homes, and they have spent 20 years plus fixing their homes up, improving the area. and making things better for everybody. Also, if you look at the neighborhood, most of them are second, third generation family owners. And as far as building a duplex, there's no shortage on houses in that area to either be bought or rented. So a duplex is not necessary in that area. Don't know what else to say on that. We have had a lot of instances down at that. There are 2 duplexes down there that when they were built, the neighbors were not aware they were being built. There are several times that the people living in those duplexes have, there's a wrecked car that's been sitting in their front yard for over a year. There was one that had an auto repair shop. He was running out of his garage. And some pictures that I showed, it even showed the engine hoist in front of the car where he was taking an engine out and putting another one in. He had 3 or 4 other cars waiting in the driveway to do that. I also understood he was fixing the cars up and then selling them. There's been some drug issue concerns down in those houses. It's just a concern that multiple people going in and out of duplexes does not represent the neighborhood well. And it makes them uncomfortable. In fact, I walked down that way and just walked down to look at something, not that house. Yelling. I honestly and turned around and went home because I didn't know what they were going to do. They're fighting and screaming in the front yard and in the garage. There's been a lot of police presence down there. I've got to show other copies of them. And we would all like to be heard tonight because everybody here has lived in that area for, build a house, rent it, sell it, whatever. But don't put a duplex next to us and don't have duplexes in that neighborhood that's finally starting to look better.
Sure, I understood what you said correctly. To your knowledge, none of you ever saw a posted announcement that there was a zoning request change.
For the ones that have already been built?
No, well, yeah,
Yes,
And
for
what about-
those. Now, for this one, we have.
okay.
And that's why we're here. If we'd have known about the others that are closer to St. Louis, we'd have been here. Communication. And now we're here because we did receive some information, but we were also have been map meeting, the person wanting to build the duplex, he wasn't there. There were 3 of us or 4 of us there to talk. And because he wasn't there, they postponed it for 2 weeks, which to me is like, okay, we had to take off work and come back to do our talk, which I don't know how fair that is. And just like this, we did not know that we should have been here 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just discuss this because we didn't know that until we. Did you get those petitions?
Do you guys know?
Yes. Yeah.
So for the record, my name is Philip Zugenberg. I'm the curriculum division manager in the planning department. This case was originally heard at planning commission, the second MAPC of March. As the lady mentioned, the applicant was not there and the decision of the MAPC was to defer the meeting to give the applicant an opportunity to be there, knowing since there was opposition, they don't like to make a recommendation without having an applicant having the opportunity to provide rebuttal to concerns and kind of get the whole picture. So the MAPC deferred it. That was an MAPC in March, which means it was regularly scheduled to down for your April meeting. Well, we said you weren't here at MAPC, you need to be at Dow coming up in March. So you guys heard it, your first meeting in April. There was no reason to defer. Because we were able to communicate with the applicant and ensure that he was going to be here. So my understanding is you guys heard it in April and you recommended approval of the protective overlay for. Then it came back to MAPC later on in April. The MAPC recommended approval of a different protective overlay that would only allow 1 duplex to be built. And the conversation at MAPC was that the site is large enough that they could split the lot through a lot split and have enough space per the zoning code to build 2 duplexes. And the applicant confirmed that they were working through. And so the MAPC has a different protective overlay for consideration. I don't recall the exact date, but it's definitely within either the next week or the next 2 weeks that it's actually coming to council. She is correct, they provided protest petitions, and protests equal, I believe, at least 45% of the protest area. So whether you choose a recommendation from approval from DAB, which is just the hypocritical group, the recommendation for approval from MAPC, which was limited to 1 duplex, combination thereof, any approval by the city council would require 6 to 7 votes. Obviously, you could send it back to DAB, you could send it back to MAPC, you could, deny from the bench, but that's where it is in the process. Our notice of public hearing that went out to the neighbors within 200 feet that advertised the March meeting indicated that it would be coming to DAB 6 in April. Heard the case to the MAPC. The MAPC only manages discussion of the DAB being deferred. We sent out follow-up letters to all those who provided public comment indicating that the PC was being deferred, but there was no information to say that that was being deferred at all, which means it would go on with its regular schedule as per the notice of public hearing.
Which can be confusing. right?
Sure,
Because
but
it's-
at the same time, like, if we had clarified, I guess we could have, but, we also have other cases to manage. And so there was just a misunderstanding as to if the MAPC is deferred, doesn't automatically mean the DAB is deferred.
Had no idea about coming to any other meetings than the one we've attended. All of them. I have Miss Moore to attend 2 of them. And it's gonna be past my bedtime today. But,
Mine too.
yeah. Right.
Sir, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Mike Worthington, I live at 541 North. This property is going in right next door to my property. This gentleman at the last meeting claimed that his duplexes are much nicer than most, and they screen their tenants very well. I've been there for a long time, and the duplexes have ran down. They're in and out constantly. We got tenants now that are, the one don't work, he just walks up and down the street all day long. And I just don't see that going in next to my house. One thing that upset me too is they had the prettiest tree in the neighborhood on that, in that property, and he just tore it down before he. And now we got trees growing up all over, little sap trees that they are. Now, I mean, it's something, I don't want to hurt my property value. I do not want people in and out, and I've seen what the guy that lives next to the duplex. I don't think it's fair to him. If we would have known, they would have put the signs out front that we got this time, we would have fought it then, kept that from happening, but we didn't get that off. So I'm not very good at this stuff, so I don't really have a whole lot more. I'll let someone else talk.
My name's Mark White. I live at 540 North Clara. I've been there for 19 years. And I have done a lot of work to my property. I got out of the military and I got this house. And now since they did have a notification for us to even say anything about those. They're in there now. And he just demolished and tore down things before he even realized he could even build at this property. You helped me before with a property at Newell and Clara that had 1,260 tires that we cleaned up the neighborhood and we fought. And you did a fantastic job helping us out on that. but we.
Thank
worked
you.
through it.
We don't hear that very often.
And,
Thank you very much.
And I did send you an email about this property and we all have kids here. My neighbor has 4 children and we don't like the riprap that's there now, but we don't need another activity again. And we have more than the people on that petition now. And we all own the tight knit, and we just don't want that there. That we could probably sell for a single family dwelling, but that's lot realistically is not designed for 2 duplexes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, I would be. I wouldn't protest it. I didn't, when I saw them tear down, it sat there clean for a really long time, so nothing was ever put out. I watched it all the time, my kid, because we go up and down that street all the time, so I just don't see, I just don't want that next to my, I just live right across, kitty corner from this. Clean that neighborhood up, and we've done a lot of work down there, and it looks a lot better, but we don't want another run. That's all I have to say.
At 55, 6 North Clara. And so it's one of the reasons I bought it. 33. It's close to a little over 3. What do I call it? 3 acres. Okay. Got a garden I'm planning for there, and I've already bought some rose bushes for there, and trying to get rid of the grubs that have apparently taken over my yard. But I'm directly across the street from where this duplex or duplexes, which I'm not happy, told that this was duplex, not 2. So if he can't have a meeting to protest, and we can't be heard because he isn't here, the same should. And nobody's here because we didn't know about it. That's not fair to us. And I have seen what my next door neighbor that lives right next to the duplexes that were already built there. That is in the driveway, that has been damaged, that has to move. I have witnessed where one of the people out on the street. So when I go to pick up my trash, I'm having to pick up their trash that is blowing down into my trash. The traffic on our road is bad enough. Road that the traffic wouldn't be so bad, but that was a mistake. And having a 4-plex there versus a duplex, that's just mind-boggling. My son is also a landlord. He has a 4-plex. He has 1 house that he rents out, but son can't come and take care of what what I need at my house, because he's at those duplexes trying to do something to help those people that live there. That's what he's supposed to do. He's not supposed to just let people do whatever they want. That lives in those duplexes have a decent place to live. These people just, it's disheartening that I just moved into that home. My home was built in 1942. I don't want to see a duplex across the street from me, because I know what the traffic is going to be like. It's already bad enough. We're a little on the loud side, so now we're gonna build in possibly 4 across the street from me. I'll look out my gate and see that. I want to see go into that property. I want to see less traffic in that area. And part of me does want to see the street paved because I have to dust all the time. But the bottom is that if he to all of you on it should be exactly the same thing. He can't. If we aren't here. It's probably done intentionally. Thank you.
Sean Lovell, I live at 532 North Clara. We bought that house there 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, the duplexes down the street from us, I've had multiple people in and out, along with the guy working on vehicles, everything. He actually stopped at my house one time to try to buy one from me to work on one down there. Those people that have moved in there now, we'll see them walking up and down the street at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. There was one night, me and my wife was coming home at probably 10:30, 11 o'clock. They were walking on one side of the street, walked over to the other side of the street, and took probably 10 minutes for them to even pass our driveway so we could pull in and looking at us like we were doing something wrong. Like, we own our home there. We have 4 children that play there. And with what's going on the street now, it has become a drag strip basically down a dirt road. House that was down there, we finally got them out, but the guy fell asleep at the wheel and ran into my ditch. And then blamed us for it. Pull a gun on us. It's a, I don't know, 20 minutes before we could even get a cop over there. And they were known in the neighborhood for issues. Duplexes, I mean, I'm right catty corner from it. We don't need any more in there. Only seen the duplexes that the guys own now, painted one time in the 3 years I've been there. And each unit's had at least 3 different families in it. He don't do nothing with the property. Or don't even sit in the driveway, it's off to the side in the grass. And just tore off of it, it's total. It's been there for probably closer to 2 years. At the end, they drive through that yard all the time, St. Louis. Parking in the yard. I side of my driveway, but I've got it gravelled all the way to the back. The tree that was there was, God, it was probably the oldest one in our neighborhood right there. Next to a couple of others that aren't far behind it. But it's basically right in the middle of the property towards the front and shaded the whole property. somebody was to went in there and built another just single family home, they wouldn't have had to remove it. They didn't care about the other tree that was between that property and the property to the south of it. They busted the limbs out of that one. Didn't cut them out, they busted the limbs. Well, that's gonna kill that tree. My grandkids, that's why we bought in that neighborhood. She grew up in the neighborhood on the other side of Central, so we know it very well. That was part of buying there. You know, we moved from one house to that one when we bought it. It was 7 blocks. Very easy to move furniture and everything over there. We didn't have to rush with it. Done a lot of work to our house. We've actually redone the fence between our house and the neighbor's house before she left. Between our houses, fixed some of the panels. Still trying to fix the ditch in the front yard where the guy ran through it, because all the block was still fall. They have a ditch in the neighborhood. Well, yeah. It don't do a whole lot of good. He has water that pulls in front of it. You know, they stopped paving the street for the school at what, 3rd Street is where it stops. Well, everybody still flies down our street to get to Dodge. And the buses go faster than some of the cars in the mornings. And walk to school, but it's not the greatest thing sometimes with that many people coming down the street all the time. And then there is only gonna make it worse. See a home go in, then a duplex to cut down on the traffic and the people that are in there. It's really all I have for it.
We're on a different.
Now, you got just as a suggestion, from my own personal experiences, you'll get results. It's just gonna take a while. The squeaky wheel gets greased. There are 2 avenues for the kinds of problems that you're experiencing there now. One is on wichita.gov, report an issue, and the other is 911. With constant traffic and speeding problems, every time you experience that, turn it in. With the problem with parking on non-hard surfaces or having inoperable vehicles in plain view on property, those are in violations code. You turn that in, and I can assure you, it may take time. The inspectors will work that. So don't feel like you're out there all by yourself with the things that pop up. You can get them addressed.
We've done all of that stuff.
We'll keep doing it. Keep doing it. Squeaky wheel, remember?
And that's why we don't want the duplex.
Stuck together on this, we can only take it so. They're not want to allow city council to speak, so we have to bring it to our council. This is the only way we can recommend. She's helped me. I voted for her. Well, it's the truth. I mean.
Get more people.
There was a misunderstanding. I don't have pressure. We don't know until people come
This
and
is a
tell us.
great agenda.
So
I
I
think it's great.
really appreciate some people taking time to participate in the process. So sorry for the frustration, but I appreciate you all taking time to be part of the process. 'Cause we don't know what we don't know, and you guys all know your neighborhoods very well. So I appreciate you taking time to come and share that with all of us. Even if it was at the last meeting, it hasn't gone to council yet, so this is still a good opportunity for you to share with us.
It's been educational for me.
Okay,
No, I didn't think we did.
anyone else to speak on the off agenda
Thank you for
item?
your information.
We have 7 planning cases.
Sorry.
No. close the public.
Have anybody else for a public agenda? I'll go ahead and defer it over to Councilmember Ballard for new business.
Okay, we're gonna move on to new business. The first zoning case is 2026-00013.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you don't know.
Good evening, everyone. Brad Early, Unity. Case zone 2026-00013. This is a case where the applicant is requesting a zone W office warehouse with protective overlay 476. The 0.25 acre property is located at 4715 West Central Avenue. This is a property that is developed with this in a surface parking lot. The GO district does allow for office and commercial uses. However, warehousing is not permitted. Is permitted in the OW district. A table showing the differences between the development stages if the zone change were to be approved. And height standards, they would apply because the properties abut and are across the street from zone area from the properties that are zoned SF5. And the house interior side compatibility setback was reduced. Does exist along the south and west property lines. However, solid screening is only required along the south. The subject site would be required to provide a landscape street yard and any new parking lots or additions to existing lots would be required to install parking lot screening and landscaping. And due to the construction of a new building, a landscape street yard with parking lot screening along West Central Avenue, and a landscape buffer along the south property line. Street because it's a local street with commercial zoning on the other side. We can go to the zoning map. See, limited commercial developed with a single family dwelling and a studio. Property to the south, that 5 is developed with a single family dwelling. Property to the east, LC, is developed with an office, and property to the west is zoned LC and is developed with a single family dwelling. The proposed protective overlay, which would restrict the site to what's allowed in the LC district. And so following uses are prohibited: car wash, entertainment establishment, nightclub in the city. Given the proximity of residential uses, staff does recommend one extra portion to the protective overlay that no drive-through facility shall be. So that's a staff recommendation for the PO. Site was platted as part of the VJ Fisher edition. The old zoning code, so different designations there. And then again, 26 setback was reduced from 25 feet to 10 feet. So that's as far as public services go, the property has access to West Central Avenue and North Bear Street. Municipal services do serve the site, and Wichita serves the subject about 300. The requested zone changes in partial conformance with the plans and policies. The community investments plan future growth map identifies the site to be appropriate for residential, which is defined as areas that reflect the full diversity of residential development typically found in a large city. The office warehouse district uses are typically not appropriate. Zoning will maintain and expand an existing use, while the protective overlay will kind of restrict. Development areas, non-residential uses shall provide appropriate screening and buffering from residential uses. Applicants would be required to do that. For the Wichita Places and People Plan, it's in partial conformance. Strategy 3 aims to improve the economic feasibility of commercial. Not create a walkable place. Approval of the zone change request does improve the long-term feasibility. Does recommend approval subject to the particular play, which includes what the applicant proposed, but then also the second portion which staff proposed. Say that as of today, staff has not received. Well, I can go to the second. Once we get that. This is looking west into the site, southwest into the site, and scroll down, south into the site, and again, south into the site, and south away, east away, north. So I can stand for any questions.
Sure how to word it. So I'm gonna call it the camel's nose under the tent. When we consider not in full compliance with things like people and places and other guidelines that have been put in place to try to develop and ensure consistency within a neighborhood, what my assumption is that leaves any joining or cross property leverage where Dave could come in and say, hey, George got that approved, why can't I? And all of a sudden, we've got a massive change or a growing change that is no longer in compliance. Do you guys think through those kinds of things to see where we're headed in the future?
We do. Case, on a case by case basis, and we do, you know. Something is approved in 2000. That as it is, well then in 2000. Also take a look at the plans and policies as well. And so like, you know, in this case, is for residential, it's clearly not a residential situation, it's an office, you know, so we have to also kind of take into, it's on West Central, you know, so we have to take all of those things holistically into consideration. And sometimes, you know, sometimes the plans and the policies aren't always perfect, where they might recommend residential. It might make more sense to be commercial because they don't go blobs on the map, right? If we can go down to the future growth map to show kind of what it looks like. So this blob, you know, it's not pinpoint accurate, right? But it's going to be what we use. Now, you know, this is for residential. It looks like they thought, because you can see where it's pink is probably where existing commercial are along West Central. Perhaps they maybe thought that was a residential when it was a commercial. Typically in these that aren't just blobs, they're like existing uses that are there. And so that's what happened. Oh, from an overhead view, it's not a residential thing, who knows? But we try to take all things into account on a case by case.
There's the conformance. Well, it's odd that it doesn't hit any of the plans. It's but one of 9 things.
And so even if someone across the street were to say, well, so-and-so got it in and conform to the plan, well, they the situation. Is the applicant with us by chance?
I am.
Love to hear more about what you're planning for it.
Thank you, members of the DAB. This is kind of a weird deal. This is an office building, and they wanted to have a storage building for their office use. They sell coffee makers to one of the coffee companies. Because those coffee makers aren't used by that building, I could build this storage if it was just for a storage building for that particular use. But because they're going to warehouse those coffee makers, I have to have a warehouse. So if you go up and down Central, you'll see heavy LC uses, lawn shops, liquor stores. This is a nice little office use. This is just to accommodate what they do as a business. They build these, what is it, the Seventh Brew, I think they're called, or some, those little coffee places. So they build them, but they have to have the coffee makers that, equipment that go in there. That's what's going to be in this building, and that's it. So it's really, that's why we put the restrictive covenants on, because if you go up and down, you'll see LC all up and down Central. So although we're doing office warehouse, and that's only because this is the first zoning category that allows warehousing. So we're not allowed to do any other things that are in office warehousing, only LC, and even more restricted than all the other LC that's along West Central. So we've restricted this way down, just basically so we can build that building.
That answered my question. What the heck do you warehouse on a quarter of an acre?
Yeah, and it's really not, it's just, it's more of a storage, but staff has determined it's not storage, it's warehousing.
Questions from the public or the applicant or staff? To Deb? Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Is Mark still online?
Thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Move on to the next one.
All right, so that's a 7-0 vote. And Brad Etherly, MAPD. From LC, limited commercial GC. It's a 0.14 acre. Located at 1322 West Douglas. Applicant is requesting the zone change in order to allow tattooing and body piercing on the site. General commercial is the most restrictive zoning that allows tattooing and body piercing. And any tattoo and body piercing outside of the Old Town District overlay are subjected to supplementary use regulations that are found in the UZC. And I think the biggest one, the one that we run into all the time, is that all facilities shall be located a minimum of 200 feet from a school, park, or residential zoning. So it's really hard to find GC property that's not within 200. The other one is all tattooing and body piercing shall be conducted within an enclosed building. Case would be over 200 feet from any park, residential zoning, or school. So that is met. So if the zone change request is approved, the applicant would need a second one of basically being conducted within an enclosed building. If the zone change is approved, this would allow more commercial and similar residential uses on the site. Development standards are listed there in your staff report, the differences. Does have a 12-foot front setback, which would make the building a legal non-conforming situation with the zone change. Of the non-conforming structure that increases the degree of non-conformity is prohibited. If it's destroyed or torn down, then they would have to conform with the zoning. Subject site is within the Delano overlay, so any changes to the exterior of the building that require a permit are subject to the neighborhood design guidelines and reviewed by the Delano Design Review Committee. Just one parking space for 330. The applicant has not specified how large the portion of this, the suite that he's going to be taking up is. But aerial photography does show that there's space in the rear for street parking. If that, to the extent that it increases the value of the property by more than 50. Landscape code. So staff is recommending a protective overlay that would restrict the allowed uses and signage standards to those in the current LC zoning. But with that use of tattoo and body piercing allowed as well. If we can get to the zoning map, this commercial property. To the south across West Douglas Avenue is an LC developed with a parking lot. LC with a single family residence and property to the west is zoned LI with a all within the Delano overlay district. This site was platted in 1886 as part of the Martinson's first addition to West Wichita. And in 2003, access to West Douglas Avenue and North Martinson. Municipal services do serve the site, and Wichita Transit stops at the southeast corner of Douglas. And policies, it is in conformance with the future growth map, which identifies it as an industrial use. And tattooing and body piercing is permitted in industrial zoning districts, so that aligns with that. Educational guidelines, one of them under development patterns states that support expansion of existing uses to adjacent areas with a tattoo and body piercing facility across the street. And within the established central area, buildings are encouraged to be located close to the street with parking areas located behind or beside the buildings. And so that would also be something with this one being closer to the street. The requested zone changes in conformance with the Wichita Places for People Plan, Strategy 3, feasibility of commercial service uses and the markets necessary to support them. So approval of the zone change request would improve the feasibility of providing commercial service on site. And then lastly, it's in conformance with the Delano neighborhood plan, the future growth map for that. Sites so staff does recommend approval of the zone change request, subject to the protective overlay found in your staff report. And we can go to the pictures. Looking.
It is. I'm the guy. Okay.
South away, looking west away, I'm looking east towards all of it. So I can stand for any questions.
I have two. One was already answered. But second, what does it mean that what's an example of a non-enclosed space? Like just on, can't do it on the floor?
Good question. I would assume so. I mean, basically, you gotta be in a building.
That's a, see that. Maybe because
Pointing out the obvious, right?
Public barriers or markets.
My other question for you, which is just kind of it's going in one side of these.
Do you want me to? Yeah, I went there. Yeah, It's fun. And we just happened on it. The prior owner actually was kicking out a whole bunch of people that were squatting in there last December, and I just happened to walk over there. We actually are in the building to the west right now. We're time piercing. And it's just by chance I walked over there and they were kicking people out. We knew one of the tenants that was in there at the time he had passed away, and then all of his friends squatted in there for several months, and we didn't know what was going on with them until that moment. She's like, I'm over it. Like, I'm gonna get rid of it. It goes back to what you were saying. It is impossible to find proper zoning for tattoo and piercing. So we got lucky with this one. We just needed to rezone it to one of the 3 classifications. Right now, we're limited industrial at the other building just to the west of it. Limited commercial doesn't count. So it is a duplex. I think initially the concept and why it's rated zone right now as limited commercial is because there was 2 offices at one point on either side of it. And then the owner that owned it before me converted it into residential. So it never changed zones. I don't know how that works. That's past my scope. So we're rehabbing this, and it is going to be a duplex, and we're opening the whole thing up. So the plan is we're time piercing is more of like, I want to be bougie. It's a bougie piercing setup. Our direct competition is top piercing, and that's the vibe that we're going for and what we're taking on. My wife is the piercer there. Her sister is going to move in later on. She's a tattoo artist as well, but they're going to maintain a smaller space, and it's going to be appointment only. So it's really just going to be piercing is the main focus. To the parking thing, you brought that up. Yes, we're in the parking. I think at least 6 spots. So.
Are you attempting to maintain some of the historic character?
Yeah. So the way it is right now is what we're going to try to maintain. We're not going to do anything different for it. So I mean, it's one of those old craftsman bungalows. So I love that look. Yeah. Some ADA compliance with it, like get a ramp on the side of that. But other than that, I think.
Standing right, then this is only becoming GC to allow tattooing, and then the only other things allowed are LC.
Correct. I think we are going to be GC, but it's going all of the LC things.
But
that's all you can do with the overlay or the protect overlay they're doing. So, right. And it's literally just to staple in the tattoo and piercing. That's it. And we do have walk-ins right now, but our hours of right now are 11 to 7. I don't think that's changing. We're going to open it. We are getting ready to start training another piercer. So right now we're doing 4 days a week. We'll go to 6 days probably, maybe 7, but it won't. There's not going to be nighttime things. We don't want it to be nighttime.
Yeah.
It's an all right neighborhood. Just the nighttime thing, So just keep it safe for everybody.
Questions from the dam? Okay.
Councilmember Ballard, we do have Vince on Teams. Vince, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and provide public comment on this.
Since the room audio is extremely choppy, I would like a thumbs up from Maggie if you can hear me okay. All right, appreciate that. I do appreciate this applicant and the reason for they're doing this because the piercing and tattoos is an extremely strange zoning category. What concerns me is a sense of equity. Right now, this tattoo parlor is zoned, or piercing parlor is zoned appropriately, yet according to the planning department, we've got 2 other ones that are not. And my question is, are they going to be treated the same way where they're basically told you have to get a zoning change, otherwise you're going to be out of business? That just rubs me the wrong way that there have been no MABCD central inspection cases against any of the other tattoo parlors, yet JR said, oh, well, they're doing it in a non-conforming way. Well, if they're a non-conforming way, why haven't there been cases against them? Last time I checked, Wichita just celebrated its 150th anniversary. Let's rewind a little bit. Back to the 158 years ago, we passed the 14th Amendment, which said equal justice under the law. And I want to make sure that all of our tattoo and piercing parlors are treated the same way without the zoning department going in there and saying, you can't do business here. So We just had the planning director on Tuesday, April 28th, make a presentation to the city council regarding bulk rezoning of this entire area. And I don't want this to get in the way of that. I'm for this zoning, but I really don't understand why they couldn't just change it so that Central Business District could allow tattoo and body piercing. So that's something I'll be discussing with Scott and Maggie. I think it would be good if you did as well, because we want to make some plans that'll put this in place for growth for the next 50 years. So for this particular one, but I want to make sure that we're treating all of our similar businesses in a way that's fair. So with that, thank you for your time.
Any more questions?
Not a question, but a question for you perhaps. Am I hallucinating, or was there talk of repealing that 200-foot restriction a few years back?
Do you have any updates on that?
As far as that goes.
I mean, I've been with the planning department for 7 years. Probably about the time I started, there were rumblings of doing a code change to modernize the ability for tattoo and body piercing. And then there was change in director, like just a lot of stuff came into play and it just essentially fell off. Not for any particular reason, but also didn't stay on board for no particular reason either. So it just kind of got left out to dry and nobody picked it up again.
Can we put that shelf?
It seems weird.
It's
not too, it takes.
This is
so
the moment to
code
do it, right?
change-
Like the city's been like dinging every tattoo and piercing shop that's not, they're not in code. So like they've been, I don't know who's been outing all of them, but it's like the last few months, because the community's really tight. So everybody's like, hey, the city's hitting us with this, but obviously you're not doing what's right because it's not coded, it's not zoned that right, that way.
So code change has to be initiated by the planning commission or the city council.
Well, I don't hold my breath with planning commission. So.
Maybe because he's correct. We've seen several tattoo and body piercing applications come through recently.
Yeah.
So somebody's finding.
Somebody's been pulling the trigger on tattoo.
Because Vince is not wrong. There are tattoo and body piercings in Delano that are not in the correct zoning, but whether they were grandfathered in or just non-conforming, haven't been enforced upon. It's a complaint basis, so that's something we really can't control. I mean, yes, we're aware of them, but we still rely on a complaint basis. So, like I said, we've just seen more. So somebody is turning them in, so to speak. So it could possibly bring them up to enough attention that maybe a code change is possible.
Correcting their zoning, and we have those at least every other month or so, but this is antiquated.
Get ahead of it.
You're doing the right thing.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Like, did you have a question?
Oh.
I think I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Motion, is there a second? Josh, second, all in favor? Is Mark still online?
He is typing, he is. Okay. Who was who made the motion? Thank you.
Okay, 2 down.
That's 00017. This is a case where the applicant is requesting a zone change from TF3 to family residential and B multifamily residential to NR.
The neighborhood residential district.
Oh, I may have said that, neighborhood retail. Yeah. So this is a 1.3, 1.4 acre property that is located on the east side of North Topeka and within 150 feet north of East 10th Street. Specific falls under a medical services use. A surface parking lot, the applicants would like to convert the northern portion of the existing building into a pharmacy. So in the B district, if it were an accessory use to a hospital. But as a standalone pharmacy within a medical clinic, it's considered retail general. So that is allowed as a use in the neighborhood retail zoning district. So if the zone change is approved, the development standards for all three districts are located there in the table in the report. As far as compatibility standards, the compatibility setback standards would apply, if we can, well, this is good, this is fine. It would apply to the rear setback, which is going to be the rear, this is going to be the rear property line. So it would basically apply to this portion because this is TF3 and this portion right here, because it's against the TF. But basically, the existing building is approximately 35 feet from that property line. And compatibility setback standards basically say that. So it's within that, it's good. If it's torn down, remodel, whatever, then it would have to, it would have to adhere to those compatibility setbacks. But again, really just along that very top lot and then on the side as well. And then as far as height standards, it can't be more than 35 feet, and our district limits height to 35 feet anyway, so that's fine. The existing building doesn't seem to be over 35 feet, so should be all fine for that as well. As far as screening and landscaping goes, screening would be required. Basically along this section here, again, these two lines, there is already existing screening. I don't know if the fence here belongs to the clinic or to the residential house, but this garage and fence here is sufficient. Those were ever to go away, they have to be replaced. They would be required to include a landscape street yard and landscape buffers where abutting residentially zoned districts. Any new parking lots, additions to existing lots would be required in according to the landscape code. As far as parking goes, for retail general, it's one space per 333 square feet for the first 400,000 square feet. So as you can see, the property includes all of this parking. It also has parking behind the building. I don't know if that's for staff or whatever, but there's plenty of parking, it looks like, for platted as part of Stafford and Wright's addition, no other zoning cases. The subject site has access to North Topeka Avenue and North Emporia Avenue. It also has a paved alley between the two. Municipal services serve the site. Wichita Transit serves the site at the northeast corner of Broadway and 10th Street and at the northwest corner of Broadway and 11th Street. As far as policies and plans, the future growth map identifies the subject to be appropriate for commercial. So that is defined as areas that reflect the full diversity of commercial development. Say that general retail certainly fits that subject. As far as locational guidelines, under the heading of design guideline 1D states that accepted mixed use development areas, non-residential uses should provide appropriate screening and buffering from residential uses, which will be required. So guideline 2A under land use compatibility, that neighborhoods serving retail and office uses can be appropriate along arterial streets or small infill sites near residential uses through conversions of residential structures if appropriate site design features limit traffic, noise, lighting, etc. As far as places for people, states to improve the economic feasibility of commercial uses. This will do that. And encouraging infill redevelopment that is contextual to the environment. It's obviously a medical district, so that would be met. Identifies the subject site to be appropriate for professional and administrative services. So we think that would be, and medical. So we think that would work. So we can go to the site plan or the site pics. This is a lot of pictures and it's from a lot of different angles. So just bear with me. This is looking east from Topeka on the north side, south side. This is looking in between what were the two apartment buildings on the north position or portion of the site. This is looking north into the site on the Topeka side. This is looking north into the Emporia side, west into the Emporia side, west into the rear of the Topeka side. A lot of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of medical buildings, dentist offices. This is the we did this one a couple of years ago for like a McDonald's house, I think. So lots of things going on. That I'll just, if you can scroll back up. This is yeah. So this is the part of the fence. It looks like it's only about 4 feet here, but I didn't get a good shot. But going through the parking lot, it's about 6 feet, so it's fine. But this is the residential going down Emporia. And then if we can go, you're doing a great job. Yeah, so this is the fence in the garage looking east from the building that's there. And then this is looking north, kind of away down. It's a lot. Good luck if you can figure all that out, but it's all there. And so with that, I can stand for any question. That's recommendation is for neighborhood retail on the North Topeka Avenue site. That it would be, only a pharmacy would be allowed as permitted. And then for the Emporia site, for the parking lot, that would actually just be GA, general office. So something that the applicant didn't request, but we think that that's more appropriate for the parking lot section so that retail wouldn't be allowed to go in there. And then, of course, like I said, only a pharmacy being allowed.
Yep.
I have a question. Can you tell me a little bit more about this pharmacy? We're not talking about like a logo.
What is the applicant here?
We're just talking about prescription items.
Okay, Alan, let's let the applicant talk real quick, or agent, where's the agent?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can.
Thank you. We'll start with the DAB. Does the DAB have any questions?
Only question is the nature of the pharmacy. It's not gonna be like a drive-through, it's gonna be.
Well, so let me,
Or
for
what
the
is it?
record, Kim Edgington, PSC Consulting, agent for the applicant. Because Topeka is a one-way south street at this location. The intent is to do a drive-up window, which would essentially almost follow the curve of that sidewalk. Initially, this pharmacy.
I'm sorry, with the sidewalk.
Wish I had a pointer, and I'm very.
I got
short.
one here,
I'm
right
sorry.
I'll do it.
So they're wanting to put a driveway in the front.
Right, so
Like right here.
right here, yes, and they have met with traffic engineering on that. And based on it being a very low intensity, I mean, it's not a Walgreens type pharmacy where you can come buy greeting cards and food and, yeah, this is within the existing building, just a very small portion for the farm. Designed to serve just the client, initially to serve the clients of the Grace Med Clinic. So the drive will come in here, and because it's a one-way south street, we've worked with traffic engineering that your driver's window can actually pass right here for a pickup at this location and then come back out. So. And so we met, again, like I said, with traffic engineering, with planning staff. And based on the very low intensity of use and the low traffic, the expected low traffic generation for this particular project. And being able to serve clients that, sometimes to necessarily get out of their vehicle to access this property. So right now there's, the parking is back behind here. The public entrances are in the front of the building, so it does become problematic for clients to access the pharmacy facilities and have a drive-up window where, we see even the new pharmacy there on Waco, just south of Central, they just added a pickup window as well. It's just a standard practice really with pharmacies these days to have that service to offer.
More often than I'd like to admit, driving down that street for services at a different facility, and it seems like every time I've gone down there, that place is just packed with parking. Did traffic indicate they were okay with the reduction in slots?
There were, because they're really only gonna lose maybe theoretically 4 spots. And I've been down, we had a notification issue that it wasn't properly notified, so I've been putting the sign up and taking it down and putting the sign up and taking it down. I have never found any trouble finding parking along the east side of Topeka, that there's ample parking available. And the clients have this entire parking lot back here to use as well. So traffic engineering did not have a concern that there would be a loss of any functional parking spaces.
Questions from the dad before we go?
Do we have any idea? I have one.
Yeah.
Is there any idea on volume? Because of volume of traffic, this feels like a pretty big shift for our neighborhood to have a circle drive-through pharmacy.
Right.
It feels significant to me. Is this the best option for where it goes?
Well, because of the street and the alignment and the pharmacy is already, this is the area of the building that will be remodeled for the pharmacy. And it fits into just the function of the entire building. So, when I talked to the medical director for Grace Med and the chief financial officer, they do not expect that this is going to be a highly used, but there are some clients that it's really critical for. They said there are probably going to be some days when it never gets used. That you would expect 2, 3, maybe 5 big vehicles a day would access this pharmacy. A lot of the clients are already receiving services in the building. And so the pharmacy, they're going to physically be in the building using the pharmacy. This is just for that portion of the population that has trouble accessing.
If I'm hearing you right, folks that attend or are going to Grace Med for their care, they will be able to use the pharmacy inside as well.
Right.
Okay.
There will be a physical window inside the building as well for the pharmacy.
Equity and accessibility standpoint, I feel like it should be easier for our clinics to have pharmacies within their building. I've certainly bounced around between health centers, and it would be a heck of a lot easier if Health Corps or Grace Med or ComCare, you could just mosey up to a window that they had in the building. I think that.
And that's what Grace Med has found, that they've lost, the professional pharmacy on Murdoch is gone now.
Yeah.
And so there's, there's a true need to have a pharmacy facility within.
I wholeheartedly agree and think it should be easier to do.
Can I? There's a pharmacy literally across the street here at Via Christi, like right there. Is there? Still open?
That, as far as I know, that one also closed as well. So that was what has driven the need for, yeah. It either has or is slated to.
So Brad, I have a question for, again, I'm just public Brian. This change and this permission to have a pharmacy that lives with the property, or as this changes hands, then can that, what happens? Like,
Yeah, no, it would.
only as a pharmacy.
Only as a pharmacy.
So they couldn't like make this a KFC University and
No
serve
other
fried
types
chicken.
of retail would be allowed. It would still be limited to the general office uses. And part of our intent was also to get all, just kind of consolidate all of the property that they own under a similar category, because it's a little bit piecemeal right now. This is a TF3, I think. These are B multifamily. So if we could just have some consistency across the entire property as well, and make sure that everything is conforming, because, technically this is really not, it is a non-conforming use in that TF3 category. So we're kind of cleaning up some old stuff that has, who knows when all of those zone changes happened decades and decades ago. So this gets everything just right manner. And then the restriction that the staff has recommended with the protective overlay would not allow other retail types of uses, just the general office.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
And we are in agreement with all of staff's recommendations as far as the protective overlay.
This question I think is more for planning. I am concerned about just changing the parking lot to GO. Why did we change that? Why did you just say, hey,
Sure.
have some general office in your
Yeah.
parking lot?
That's a good question. Again, I think that it fits the character of the area better than NR. Now, it really would restrict everything still to GO if you chose to go ahead and allow it to be NR with that protective overlay. But it does just kind of make more sense for GO other than R for the pharmacy on the side, so.
And we felt like even just the GO here just seemed more appropriate than the B multifamily. If Grace Med is going to develop something, it is not likely to be multifamily. They are not in the business of developing multifamily housing where they could have a need for expansion of their office services, which that way they would already have that zoning in place with the GO.
I suppose then, Brian, now you see where my head's at?
I was really worried about that drive-through, I'm worried about GO.
I mean, there are no plans.
Sure, but it's tied to.
Right, but we're just building the path.
Right. I mean, they already, they're building over here,
Right, and they've done a great job with that, they've been super good neighbors, and that is fantastic, and they are the least of my concern.
Right.
My question is, what happens when, and if we haven't gate kept this well enough for our neighborhood, that's on me. And I'm talking as a neighbor, I'm not talking as a dad member.
No, I understand. I will tell you that just from an operational standpoint, Grace Med is not ever interested in giving up land. Once they have control and ownership of land, they are not known to turn that over or give up control of that by selling it. They are also very invested and very interested in what happens on property that they own and is adjacent to what they own. They invested a great deal of money in this, and they are interested in protecting it.
One dwelling for 500 acres.
So, just kind of getting everything consolidated and having appropriate zoning over the entire property, making sure everything is conforming, was part of the goal of this project.
Yes.
Technicality. I presume this is somewhat a legal document since you approved the agenda. And it seems to me, when you look at the wording up above in the, says neighborhood residential district, NR. Below it says neighborhood retail district. It seems to me those two ought to be the same.
And they should.
Yeah.
It was a mistake. on
The
my part.
correct identifier is neighborhood retail. What's being restricted through the protective overlay or is the neighborhood retail component.
Can I make a comment? Let's see. So I live right here.
Okay.
And so I was kind of worried coming here, not hearing this. But after hearing it, it sounds pretty benign to me. There are cars that are usually parked along Topeka, but you know, it's like you said, it's never enough to where you can't find a place to park.
Right.
It sounds like, I mean, I was worried that it was going to be more of a, you know, selling things that would draw a lot of people that are normally down at the jump store.
Right. No,
And,
there's not, that is not going to be a component of this
No, so,
pharmacy.
I
It's
mean,
just,
to me, I mean, so I live right next to it. From what I've heard, it doesn't, you know, it's okay. I mean, then worry.
Questions, comments, motion?
Motion to approve of the text overlay.
All in favor?
Aye.
One that you got.
So you want to abstain or?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian's gonna.
Yes, type in. Okay.
Go.
Then you get to your girl. Last one is for zone 2026-0. This is the case for the applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5, single family residential. It is 0.53 acres in size and is located at the northeast corner of west. It is currently vacant. The applicant is requesting a zone change to allow for 2 duplexes to be built on the site. Being allowed for a maximum of 7. Size of this site, that would allow for up to 9 dwelling units. Proposed 4 dwelling units are less than the maximum permitted. Should the zone change be approved, the standards are indicated in the staff report. To the, see if I have this right, I believe the north. Because they are maybe not the east.
The south is not my street.
It'd have to be north and east.
Yeah.
Yeah, northeast, yep. And the setback would be applied, because it's on the side and rear lot lines. So that would require a 25-foot setback on those lot lines, which is the maximum allowed for compatibility standards. As far as screening and landscaping goes, solid screening would be provided on the side where abutting or across the street from residential zoning districts. And that is across the street, subject side of butts and is across the street from residential zoning on all sides. That would require landscape buffer where abutting SF5 zoning, and landscape buffer is required along the north and east property line. As far as parking goes, 1 parking space is required per unit in each duplex, for a total of 4 parking spaces. As far as surrounding character, if you can scroll down to the zoning map. The character of the neighborhood is a mix of residential uses and commercial. Property to the east is zoned with a single family dwelling. Property to the south is zone B, is developed with self-service storage. Properties to the west are zone TF3 and SF5 with a duplex and a single family dwelling. Property to the north is zoned SF5.
What?
I'm sorry?
I couldn't hear you. Would you repeat what the property is?
Property to the north is zoned SF5, single family residential. So that's just what the zoning is.
So, so the school is on the wrong zoning then?
No, schools are allowed in residential zone.
Okay.
And it is developed with an elementary school and a church. There is MF29 zoning that's located 300 feet to the southwest. As far as case history goes, it was platted in 1911 as part of the Russell Tracts edition. No other zoning cases apply. As far as public services go, it has access to North Hamilton Avenue and West 29th Street North. Water and sewer services are available. Wichita Transit stops at the intersection of Hamilton and 29th. As far as the plans and policies go, it's in conformance with the community investments plan. The future growth map identifies the site to be appropriate for residential uses, so this would be appropriate. As far as locational guidelines, under general development pattern guideline 1A states development should occur where necessary supporting infrastructure and services exist or are planned for extension concurrently with the development. Requested zone change facilitates infill development where water, sewer, and transit services do exist. So the staff has not received any comments up to this point, and so staff does recommend the zone change request be approved. We can go to the site pics. This is looking east towards the site and looking north towards the site. This is looking northwest towards and looking south away from.
Questions from the deck?
Looks like that sidewalk juts in pretty far. Is that a cause for concern from planning?
No, it's in the right of way. You see the property lines are the ones in green, so it's probably to get it off of Amidon, which is always. Actually, probably what we would want to see more.
It looks like their exit will be out to 29th Street, close to that intersection.
I don't know about that for sure. We don't require any kind of site plan for zone changes.
Yeah.
It's possible that they could also have a curb cut at the north end.
Okay.
Probably don't want to have anything close to the intersection, but they'll work through public works with that.
So, but both of those streets being arterials, there are development guidelines for where curb cuts can be in relation to how far they are from intersections, so they will have to get approval from traffic engineering. Or an opening on either side, and traffic engineering might limit them to one. The standards for openings from an arterial intersection for a full movement, which means you get a left turn, is 440 feet from the center line of the intersection to the center line of the drive. they're a guideline, they have the authority to modify that. Of course, this lot has to have access. So it'll be up to traffic engineering as to where they would permit access, especially knowing they're likely going to allow them to have a full movement access. But because both of them are arterials, they will have to essentially get that, maybe not a physical permit, but essentially get the okay from traffic engineering, and that will be decided during the building permit process.
Yeah, there was a house.
Few years ago, too, that had the driveway, and I know.
But that house was there long before it became a 4-lane Amidon.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
3 questions. Combined with a question, do we have any record of the development application being posted on the property? And I ask that because I frequent that intersection 2 or 3 times per week, and I don't recall ever seeing a development sign up. It could be my poor eyesight.
No, so it's a little tricky because we don't go out there and police sign up. Now, one thing that might be a factor is we only require it 2 weeks before the planning commission. So, you know, it's possible that it's been up since then. It's possible that it hasn't, and we just really kind of.
Okay, fair. So the second question I have, or one more question related to that is, how many notices actually went out for this property?
Yeah, so I'm gonna guess, I don't have all the, I know Philip will have the answer, but I'm gonna try to refrain from resorting. Guesses this was a 200-foot property circumference or area around. I think that anything under an acre is 200 feet, so that would be.
So my third question gets more to the point of the property itself. Since there aren't any dimensions on the thing, I use the scale on the diagram and a little kitchen arithmetic, which may or may not be accurate. But as near as I can tell, this property is 100, at the north end is 122 feet wide. On the east side, it's 225 feet long, and it's 70 feet wide on the 29th Street side, give or take something, I don't know. I really, oh, we can put a 4-plex on there, 2 duplexes.
Yeah.
And in addition, I don't understand the parking requirement. Are we assuming that the units are all 1 bedroom or studios?
So we just rely on what the code says, and the code basically says 1 parking unit per dwelling, same for a single family residence. So that's all they're required to have.
Even if they're 2-bedroom units, I thought there was 1.5.
Yeah, multifamily requires more. If it's then it's 1.25. If it's 2 bedrooms or more, it's 1.75.
Okay.
But for single family and duplexes, it's just 1 per dwelling unit. Now, as far as getting everything on that lot, if they can't get everything they need, then they can't do it. They have to be able to get both buildings, landscaping, screening, parking on that lot.
And
if they can't fit it, they can't do it.
Remind me, what's happening with building height on this? Does it stay at 35 feet?
I'm sorry?
Building height?
Building
Stay at
height?
35 feet?
Yeah, I think that. MF18 is normally that no structure shall exceed 35 feet in height when within 50 feet of the TF3 or more restricted zoning. So it can go once it gets past those compatibility standards, the thresholds that those are set for. So you've got go down to this to the zoning map.
I'm just trying to get a clear picture of what's going to happen.
I'm saying that they are going to go to 45 feet, but they could. So
all right.
TF3, SF5, all over here, basically of the lot, you basically said 100 feet here, 200 and something along north and south. any of those, you have to go in, start ramping up the height.
Okay.
So anything within that 50 feet, that first 50 feet would have to be 35 feet.
Okay.
All right. And then you can start ramping up. And there's a one per so many feet or something. So it's not just automatically 35 to 45, it kind of ramps up. So.
I sure hope this isn't another one of those, gee, I'm gonna come in and ask for forgiveness because I didn't understand the limits.
I don't know if it's helpful, Bill, but if you go up to that previous, the aerial that we saw, on the corner, on the other corner, 49th and Hammond in there, that one right across is a smaller lot, and that just helped me to visualize the actual.
Yeah, two duplexes on that odd shaped lot is gonna be tough. But
There's one right
that'll
there.
be their permit.
I think they got plenty of space.
Yeah.
Public. And at that corner, and look, it was announced to us at the church that, the reason I know there was a school there is because it belonged to the church that has it. And the pastor told us when the building was torn down a couple of years ago, that they were going to put 4 homes on it. He didn't say duplexes, so everyone went, ugh! So I stand there and look, and I think duplexes are a great idea. I believe you when you say the parking. People don't deal with life. Sometimes you have to go away from the code in a sense, because people don't, they live alone in their houses as a teenager or a mother-in-law visiting, and there would be no place to park. And then, of course, we all know the tragic happenings just a few blocks south of this last weekend. It's because people are trying to cross at wrong places. Right there at the bottom, it looks like the state of Minnesota. See the bottom of Minnesota there? That's where all the kids are coming from the middle school. So that corner is filled times a day, and parents picking up children. And then I just think that in order for it to be approved, you're going to have to make some kind of different parking situation.
Is the applicant here?
Huh?
Is chance?
I couldn't hear you, Lexi, sorry.
I was just asking if the applicant or agent was here to answer any of your
Oh, yeah,
questions.
that would be so good.
Guess not.
And, you know, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a good thing. I just think there needs to be. There's gonna be all those children, there's the crosswalk of the top point of Minnesota there. Is handled by children pushing, and then the other crosswalk is also handled by children. You know, something went wrong recently and somebody didn't see somebody crossing with their little wheelchair, their big wheelchair. Anyway, I did not know this was coming up. I just came to learn something about planning. Is there a way to, as we heard from the very first speaker, oh, I can't think of the word, extract, but anyway, the very first group is very conscious of anything except his pocketbook, which is fair, I guess, but we have to be conscious for them.
Well, as far as the parking goes, as long as they're meeting the code, Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that I've never seen like a protective overlay that requires more parking than what is required by code. I don't think that
That's
that's,
because when your grandmother comes, she can park in your driveway while you park in the street or whatever. You know, most streets you can do that. You would not be able to do that here. To the east and south, there was a kind of interesting development. And it doesn't show up on that, but anyway, they put in, I think there's 8 duplexes in a very small space. Is there anything they just put in? Have you seen it, Miss Maggie?
Which ones?
It's
I think it's just that little complex.
It's just, yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it's very interesting little duplexes and lawns or back, all they have is parking. And so they don't have people parking on the street.
And then from, does Deb have any questions or?
Sure that we include overlay requirement.
Two minds. I think that I'd do a protective overlay, watch for an amendment, but also capping this at 2 duplexes since it can go up to 9 units, which is alarming given the setup. But I'm also, and folks can push back on me, I am frequently frustrated by our applicants not joining us, and I would motion to defer this one and make that our standing policy going forward, that we defer folks or applicants don't attend again. And you brought up perhaps the legal concern about that, but we're not denying. Which is never, I don't want us to have a backlog, but I'm also a little annoyed by it.
I have that comment.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
It's frustrating when people don't show up because you don't have the opportunity to ask them a question, so it's easy for you to say no if they're not here to answer questions.
It's one thing.
Now, we have in the past just denied them where the applicant hasn't read, so that is an option as well. But I do think that deferring is a useful tool in our arsenal.
If we defer and get some more information, perhaps at the
Do
next.
you have any protests?
Yeah.
So then I would make a motion to defer this case to our June meeting.
Second.
Megan, gotcha.
Oh, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Brad, I mean, is that like a whole policy change to require people? I mean,
Well, the
I
good
think
part
it's
is.
annoying,
Public hearing that is sent to applicants and agents as well as to the neighbors, it's the same letter that goes to. And as opposed to calling them and.
You hope that
you would think it would be.
Just briefly. Consequences to them not showing up insofar as we don't have complete information. Sometimes that's fine, because sometimes it's fairly straightforward. Sometimes we may have questions that we want more information on. I don't share your frustration here. I also think like the system is like, they can experience those consequences just by not being here. And if they don't want to be here, then they don't get to tell their story. And sometimes that will be detrimental to their case. I don't know that there has to be like an official policy stronger than the Washburn Agreement is our official policy.
And we always have the option to do that one, on case by case.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have a culture of gable roofs here, just as we have a culture of inclusive meetings for citizens. You know, want to be a good neighbor. That feels enough to me without putting something additional on it.
I'm with you.
Essentially, it will delay it going to city council, because it goes to planning commission here on the 14th. We protest go on for 2 weeks, which would be May 28th, and typically it's on city council within 2 weeks after that. But essentially, this will delay it going to city council, because it'll come to DAB
So
the
they-
second week of June. I'm just essentially saying what the consequences.
Yeah. So long you can tap out.
So the second dab is coming right now.
I mean, this is essentially like an MSPC. This is why we hold our meetings at 1:30 in the afternoon. Next item is CP 2608 is a community unit plan amendment. The community unit plan on the southeast corner of North Emiden and West 21st Street. It is an amendment to allow for additional use on parcel 2. So if you scroll down just to the map here, the CUP is much broader. It pretty much encompasses that whole corner and wraps a little bit down Emiden on the west side. What you see in the black is parcel 2. It's the vast bulk of the western side of the shopping center, except for the carve out for Starbucks. The purpose of the amendment is to allow nightclub in the city and entertainment establishment. Essentially, they're the same use now in the zoning code. They're just differentiated based on capacity. Entertainment establishment is less than 300 folks. Nightclub in the city is greater than 300. My understanding, and the applicants are here, is that it is truly for a nightclub entertainment establishment in kind of the common sense of the word. Their proposal is to allow it, the space that they have is on the lower level on the southernmost building. So though it's a very large parcel, just skipping ahead a little bit and giving a teaser about the recommendation, is that there's a condition of approval that would restrict it to the southernmost building on the lower level. We've done this in the past at Town East Mall when there was an amendment to the parcel that encompassed the entire mall building for a particular use, to where we identified a specific location within the building that use was allowed. So that is within the realm of the community unit plan, especially when you have something so broad. Essentially, a nightclub in the city allows for alcohol and entertainment being defined by the city code being DJs, live music, dancing, things like that. So again, my understanding, it is a nightclub in the common sense of the word. Parking would have to be provided of 1 parking space for 2 occupants. Parcel 2 has approximately 210 parking spaces. And some of those are shared with other tenants as well. Of course, within community plans, we have that shared parking where it is allowed, especially when you have a use that's likely not necessarily going to overlap on typical business hours for a lot of the shops that are within the shopping center at this time. The only other type of use that's been allowed within this community plan is back in 2001, a restaurant on parcel 8 asked for a nightclub in the city. At the time, they weren't differentiated uses. We had to call it a nightclub. Essentially, they wanted music as part of the restaurant. And so that was restricted to being allowed as an accessory use to a restaurant on parcel 8, which is more on the eastern side of the community plan.
So what year did you say?
2021.
I thought so, okay.
The UZC has noise compatibility standards that state that no sound amplification system or projecting of music or fuel shall be permitted where it can be heard more than a 500-foot radius from the site when it's adjacent to TF3 or more restricted zoning. There is TF3 to the south. Obviously, the majority of what's to the south is the lake, which actually provides a pretty significant buffer from residential zoning, residential uses that are nearby. Even with that, staff is recommending hours of operation that are in your staff report, essentially Sunday through Thursday, the entertainment. So it's not necessarily the facility, but the entertainment in the facility would have to end at 10. And then Friday and Saturday, the entertainment would have to cease at midnight. The character of the areas everybody's generally familiar with is the vast majority commercial. You do have the residential uses on the more lower density residential uses on the east side. You have some of the apartments there on the kind of to the southeast. When you go south along Emiden, it's parking for the shopping center. You get to some offices. Area north of 21st Street, there's Dillon's and the retail shopping center. Of course, there's one shopping center to the west as well. There's a cold front coming down Emiden.
West 21st Street and Eminent are both 5-lane arterials with sidewalks and turn lanes, stoplights and all kinds of things. Wichita Transit served the sites, although they probably won't serve it at 2 a.m. We find that it's in conformance to the comprehensive plan. The future growth map identifies the property as appropriate for new employment. The requested use with the staff recommended text, again, that includes the hours of operation and the restriction on the specific location for the use. We find that based on those things that it would be appropriate for the area new use category in the comprehensive plan. You can't really get more intense in terms of that, other than like industrial, but this is not an industrial area. The locational guidelines encourage infill development that maximizes public investment in existing plant infrastructure. This is an opportunity for this mall, more or less, to have another occupant. And actually, this is before my time, and be talking about people that actually used to be similar things to this way back in the day on this side of the shopping center, even to a point where it had been torn down. It was a theater. Yeah. So additionally, industrial and major commercial uses that may generate pollution, odor, noise like safety hazards and other high levels of traffic should be located away from residential areas and developed with screening, buffering, and site design features sufficient to mitigate the adverse impacts. Though there's residential across the lake, like there's really no infiltration into those. Of course, it's at the arterial intersection that has quite a bit of infrastructure to manage traffic in the area. The our recommendation from staff also prohibits so all of the live music, all of the DJ, all that has to be indoors. And so we feel like that, with the natural buffer of the lake, provides those screening and buffering requirements as well. And is there to improve economic feasibility for commercial and service uses and the markets necessary to support them. Approval of the CUP request would allow for 2 additional options for commercial development in an existing shopping center. The comment that we received is the comment that is in your staff report. Reading through, there are some things that relate to this. It kind of meanders to talk about some other things that aren't relating to the zone change of CUP amendment we're discussing today. It went to Planning Commission on April 23rd. There's actually taken on consent, which means the Planning Commission agreed with the staff recommendation, and there was no one there to provide public comment, and the applicants did not want to speak on the item at the Planning Commission either. So it was a unanimous vote 10-0. If you scroll the way down, we'll go through the site pictures. Most of them, thankfully, are focused on the lower end. So this is looking north, kind of at the southernmost building on the lower side of it. This is looking south. It's kind of a beautiful picture, I believe. You go down. This is looking to the west toward the lower side where the use would be located, and then turning right around and looking to the east where the self-storage building portion of Twin Lakes is located. With that, I can stand for any questions that you have for me.
I'm curious, why the restrictive hours? Like, that just seems odd at that location.
Essentially fair game if the town does not feel that they are appropriate or they are needed. We typically do them with these uses when there are residential nearby, but that's just kind of been our typical. So, I mean, there are.
But you go up and then they're over there on the, right, you're not.
The big apartment complex on the south side of that lake.
Yeah, it's
on the east side of the south side. of the lake.
So it's like directly south. So, like I said, it's fairly standard to where we like to be more restrictive, kind of take a conservative approach, and then essentially let the boards or the applicant massage them as they feel appropriate. So, yes, sir.
But they're indoors.
Well, could we roll down again to the building layout? Is it? Understand. There.
Oh, up and then pull it down.
Which area is it?
Yes,
No, I'm sorry. Roll on, I would like to see let's call it the engineering map.
So
to show you structure there.
Okay,
So
so,
this doesn't exist anymore.
right, that was the old
So
Twin
it's
Lakes Supper Club, so
down
we're
here.
talking the old Henry's building. For you kids, that won't make any sense.
Well, those are, I was hearing from other big folks of what used to be in.
Does the town have any questions for the agent or applicant here?
I
They're
just,
here?
I have one. How much does the hours matter to you?
Please. Okay. You or us?
Hi, Guadalupe Vasquez. If we could ask for more hours, that would be fantastic. Yeah, we would like to propose for Friday and Saturday, and Saturday until 2 a.m. Yeah, I'll let you guys talk. Yeah.
My name is Ben Solontrop, an agent of the applicant. I work on the sales and leasing at Twin Lake Shopping Center. It was recently sold to a group out of Chicago in 2025. I just want to speak on kind of the improvement they've done and they're planning to do. They've improved a lot with the parking lot. They're going to do more with the roofing. They plan to do some painting, facade upgrades. A lot with trying to, keep it clean, a lot with trash, like I said, keeping it clean, a ton with plumbing throughout the whole building. So they're really trying to make an impact on the community, make an impact on the center, bring it back to what it once was, like we've heard that, and back in the day, it was quite the shopping center. I want to speak secondly to kind of the challenges a little bit to leasing out this lower level space here. It's been vacant for a little over 10 years. The last group that was in there was High Touch Technologies, and then they relocated to downtown. We've had it listed for several years, and it's challenging without the visibility that most retailers want. And realistically, we try to think a lot about the highest and best use for spaces. I definitely think the event center and the group of people that they'll bring is going to be a great thing for the community and the area and the center as a whole. So, thank you.
Did you say that you represented the owner of the building?
Correct. Yep.
Can you run this up the flagpole that the parking lot in front of El Supermercado is a nightmare?
Yes, yeah. They're taking care of it.
Not
No, you're not.
So I'll talk a little bit about the business and cover the background. We're really excited about the space. It's going to bring not only employment to the community, but also on Sundays, we plan to have it open to the community for, if they want to have any sort of gatherings, religious gatherings, any sort of meetings, maybe if they don't have the space. 100 if they want to do some food there, any sort of corporate or private meeting, we will be opening the space available to them. For a nightclub, we hope to be able to use the space as an event venue. Graduation parties, birthday parties, any sort of private party gathering, and we're really excited about this space and the opportunity to develop it into its greatest glory, right? Like what it could be. So does anybody have any questions?
Outdoor music?
Yes, yes. So all of the music building, there's going to be any outdoor events.
Establishments like this are installing overhead that are glass, that are temporary. They're a wall during the cold weather, but then once it gets nice, they open those up. If that was the case and you had music inside, but you have those overhead doors that were able to open, that would in effect be broadcasting the music out across the lake, and I think it would carry across the lake.
No, that wouldn't be in our development plans. We don't plan on making any structural changes to the outside of the building, such as overhead doors. The doors and the windows that are there would remain as is.
Sounds great. Y'all are gonna learn a lot more about me than I would normally share. That lake is important for a lot of birds in Wichita, and so that would be my flag, is to be mindful of noise to the best of your ability.
Absolutely.
Equals, doesn't
You
press
have
it
been
more.
going last few years.
I heard they're coming
Yeah,
back.
a lot of ducks.
Questions from the public? Bring it back into the day.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Question, they requested.
Oh,
but
you're right, the hours. Okay,
Oh,
we'll change, Friday to Saturday, entertainment shall cease at 2 AM.
That again?
Friday to Saturday, entertainment shall cease at 2 AM instead of midnight as it's written.
Who was the second on that motion? Tom?
Are you good with that?
Did you want to allow it to be every day with you? But are you intending to be every day?
Do we, no, that's
They'll
our
just have
intent.
events primarily on the weekdays.
Yeah,
but-
so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is what you're asking?
Yes.
Saturday, Sunday, 2 AM.
Right on, Wayne.
Yeah, Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, and then Monday through Thursday.
I'll say midnight,
Or
or is that
midnight.
pushing it too
No, I
far?
think that's midnight.
You already lost me.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody
It's
does.
inside, it's not.
Friday,
you're not gonna have
Sunday,
it outside.
2 AM, Monday through Thursday, midnight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've driven through that.
Nay.
Mark is in there?
Yep. Oh, no. Mark's right. For me, thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to get-
Oh.
Get your hair cut.
I hope to see every one of you guys there.
Well, just go down the road.
Oh, thank you. Totally got tired.
Is PUD 2604, it's a zone change, multiple properties, combination zone, limited industrial, multifamily, two PUD, to create a main property planning development. That is up in the townhouse planning development, but other than the property and the other property were owned by the same owners, and we're just trying to unify all the properties that they have within the general community, just to have the uniform standard for all the properties that own in and around the house. The primary focus of the PUD is to essentially provide different zoning and development standards for the house property proper and some of the supporting parcels that are around it. There are 5 plan unit development parcels proposed with this, and they span from the west side of Emporia to the east side of St. Francis, and they're all north of Central, with a couple of them north of Elm, so essentially two blocks, and they're kind of just interspersed in there, as you can see on the map. The PUD would set all of the development standards to the Central Business District zoning district. What that does is it allows for lot line to lot line development, which actually brings several of the buildings into conformance because they're already built to the lot lines. We're thinking about the primary unit house buildings. It also eliminates any parking requirement. So it actually gives the flexibility of the Nifty Nut House that as they expand or grow, whatever, they don't have to take up a lot of downtown land just by providing gobs of parking spaces. Central Business District as a zoning district is on the south side of Central, directly across the street from these properties. This is not necessarily the first instance of it crossing north to Central, but especially given the development pattern of these properties, Central Business District as a base zoning for the PUD staff feel that appropriate for both of those reasons. One, again, bringing buildings into conformance, maximizing your lot to lot building area, and then not having necessarily to have an overabundance of parking spaces in an area where you want more building coverage and to support other modes of transportation in order to get there. The ones, a couple of things that are different, there's a lot of reference items in your staff report just to show you the difference between what are the uses that are allowed in LI and GC versus CBD. Essentially, as we kind of talked about with some other cases, central business is actually a more restrictive use or restrictive zoning too. And the good thing is, especially for the majority of properties that are zoned limited industrial, central business district actually now allows for residential development, where the majority of these properties are limited industrial. There's actually a couple houses on parcel 5 that are technically non-conforming because it can't be used for residential. And so it's actually a more appropriate zoning classification to base it off of for this area downtown, because you provide for a vast wide variety of commercial uses, but you also then incorporate the ability for if any of these properties were to be redeveloped, you have the opportunity for residential development, which can't happen right now. A couple of the standards that the reason they did go just to central business district, because that was kind of brought up at an earlier meeting, why not just go to central? Couple of things. The main one was actually to be able to modify the Wichita Landscape Code as it applies to current development on property and possible future development on property. Earlier this year or late last year, a variance application was denied by the Board of Zoning Appeals for a proposed building expansion onto the Nifty Nut House main building, because not for the building, but it was going to trigger coming into compliance with the landscape code, and they were going to have to use space on the land to provide landscaping along Emporia because it's limited industrial right now in the way the rules are written. And so essentially this kind of got triggered out of that denial of the variance for the landscape code. So what it boils down to is if it were just central business district, the only landscaping they would have to provide would be the parking lot screening. Those are the line of shrubs or grasses that separate parking lots from arterial streets. Central business district also is the only zoning district that has a caveat to say you can accomplish that screening by a fence or wall and not have to use landscaping. So I'm going to pivot and kind of talk about what happened at Planning Commission, because there was some recommended text from the planning department, and then there was kind of rebuttal by the applicant, and then there's the consensus of that happened at Planning Commission that planning staff is okay with. So we're going to talk about that. The consensus was that the parking lot screens, they initially asked to not do any landscaping. Planning staff said, we need to do something. We would like to see something, and we'd like to see it as actual landscaping and not fences and walls. So where we met in the middle, and what the Planning Commission recommendation included was approval of the zone change and central. So if we go to the aerial photograph, please. Sorry, there's a lot of there. Those essentially going to be a parking lot on Central. The landscaping that's required on Central is required to be actual landscaping. So planting of shrubs or grasses, highly visible corridor, 5-lane central arterial. There's a parking lot here that is going to be coming into compliance with paving very soon. That will include the requirement for parking on screening. On the side streets, essentially, they would be allowed to do the fence or wall to accomplish that, which would have been allowed in Central. Essentially, it was a compromise that Planning Commission voted on in their recommendation, and planning staff was amenable to that during the conversation at Planning Commission. It does not affect this parking lot until some triggering mechanism like a significantly large expansion or a significant monetary investment of redevelopment were to occur. It's an existing parking lot, and there's triggers within the landscape code that would have to be met before this parking lot would have to come into compliance. So it doesn't necessarily require them to do it now. There would have to be some major triggering event in the future. The PUD requires them to screen rooftop mechanical equipment, some very basic things in the code regarding screening of mechanical type things or ground related things. One thing the PUD that does, that actually is a protection for some of the surrounding residential properties that Central Business District wouldn't, is compatibility standards for setback and height are only related to property zone TF3 or SF5. We got a couple quadplexes here at Emporia and Elm. That's right next door. They're in the industrial zoning, and technically those compatibility standards wouldn't have applied. In the PUD, they actually apply them to residential uses instead of the zoning district. So it actually goes above and beyond what the code would have required as a way to be a good neighbor and understand there's residences who live here who can comply with some compatibility standards. It also requires screening when abutting or across the street from residential uses, which again is the code would have been. I'm trying not to get too much into the nitty gritty because a lot of it is really just based on Central Business District. I'm trying to hit the high level, like why is the PUD being? Time's sake, I'm not purposely trying to gloss over things. Please ask questions. The lighting per the zoning code, which restricts it to 15 feet within 200 feet of residential uses. Signage would be per the Central Business District standard. The one thing that staff had a recommendation on and the applicant concurred with is they've written in that that the developer could determine the allotment of the sign area. And what we said is you essentially can't steal sign area from one parcel and give it to another and have a really big sign. That would be against the sign code. So we're okay with you allotting your sign area within, if they wanted to put a sign along Central, they could likely get 2 signs on Central based on how the sign code is. But the size of those signs have to still conform. If one sign's, 200 square feet in the area and the other one's only 50 square feet, like we'll leave that up to them. That's fine. It's not going to take sign rights from parcel 4, which is undeveloped right now, and give it to parcel 1 along Central. So you have, Kansas
A love
Circus,
sign on Central.
Yeah. So applicant was agreeable to that. These per CBD, again, there's no requirement to provide parking, although they plan to provide parking because it's the Medina house. And then again, we noted and put a requirement here that the current lots that are gravel need to be paved with a monolithic surface, and they were agreeable to that. And that to expand, but they commented at Planning Commission that they essentially wanted to do it sooner than later anyway. The surrounding context, like we kind of talked about, is a kind of a hodgepodge of commercial, quasi-industrial, residential mixed bag, as everybody's fairly familiar with in this area. Change was actually on parcel 4, which is this one here, the undeveloped corner. Actually downsized it to B to bring a house into conformance. Other thing to note is on parcel 5, which is the one on the east side of St. Francis at the very top, there's a historic house there. This zone change was actually heard by the Richland Historic Preservation Board. And essentially when it comes to a zone change as it relates to historic preservation, is a zone change can allow for additional uses. So the Historic Preservation Board has to hear it, but it doesn't change the nature of the historic registry. Any changes to the exterior or the building, anything requiring building permit will be re-reviewed with the Historic Preservation Board for that particular structure at that time. HPB had no problems with the zone change as it stands. The community investments plan identifies the site as appropriate for residential employment mix with the locational guidelines for having major commercial employment should be at intersections of arterial streets and commercial corridors, encouraging infill development that maximizes public investment. This is a great opportunity to allow for more contextual infill. Technically, Emporia, St. Francis are arterials. Central is an arterial. Going to Central Business District, like I mentioned before, allows for residential uses on many of these parcels that don't allow it right now. So if at any time somehow the Nickina house ceases to be successful around Christmas, and somebody wants to redevelop it. Or we talked about at HPB that there's 2 houses on parcel 5. If the owner were to sell them, then those houses can actually be used as houses. Zone change is actually bringing the site into more conformance with the plans and policies that are adopted. Same thing with Wichita Place, of people improving the economic feasibility for commercial services in the markets necessary to support them, and encouraging redevelopment that is contextual to the environment. Plan. The overall thing is it calls for residential in one spot and mixed use in the other. And not to sound like a broken record, but this now allows for residential development in these parcels that currently don't allow it. So we find it's actually bringing it more into conformance with. Staff is recommending approval per the conditions in your public comment against this. So I'm going to break it apart here for a second again. Technically, there's staff recommended text regarding the landscaping. And then there was a difference of opinion with the applicant, and then their MAPC recommended motion included kind of, which was to require the landscape street yard along Central to be landscaping, but then the landscape street yard along the other streets or other parking lots could be walls and fences. Essentially, that's the most straightforward way to move forward with this, because we are amenable to that as well. So if you are going to be making a motion for approval, truly, I recommend you take the MAPC recommendation. So this essentially can stay consent at city council. So the protest period has ended on this one. There were no protests filed. This is the last step before it goes to city council. I can stand for any question. We do have the agent for the applicant here as well if you have any questions for her.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Agent. Any questions from the public?
Did I get everything, Kim? Did I say it right?
I think you covered everything. I think one of the big things that came up was the parking lots and whether or not they were gonna be paved. And we have just been waiting to get all of this consolidated before we put in that kind of investment, but that's definitely on our radar now. And once we get through this process, that's one of the first agenda items to get done is the paving. If you've been there around Christmas time, you know we need it.
Planning comments.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
I'm gonna take that as the MAPC.
Yep, MAPC recommendation.
All in favor? Anyone opposed?
So this is probably most complex one. I'll try to walk it through as best I can. There's just a lot going on. We just haven't had a future development of this size item in a long time. So there's just a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of detail. So the high level is it went to planning commission, approved for staff recommendation. No public. We had one public comment at planning commission with a concern about traffic on 53rd. No protests were submitted and that already closed. So again, this is the last step. All right, to go into. It is also a zone change to a PUD. It's on the south side of 53rd, between a quarter mile west and 3/4 west of North Meridian. So it's southwest of the Walmart. It is a 75.6 acre property and looking to do possibly a mixture of commercial and residential. With a development of this size, or essentially trying to quasi future-proof the zoning so they don't necessarily have to amend and adjust this PUD to death over 20 to 30 years as this thing builds out. So they are calling for everything up to multifamily development in addition to kind of your standard commercial shopping center type of things with some nuances related to particular types of uses that I'll do my best to explain without being confusing. Established 15 individual development parcels There would be 4 larger parcels, parcels 4, 8, 12, and 15 that are on the southern parts of it. And there would possibly be more for your anchor type storage or the larger apartment complex that that would have turned into be. And then all the rest of them would be your pad sites along 53rd. The larger parcels range in size from 10 to 20 acres, and the smaller parcels range in size kind of about half to 1.5 acres, depending on what it is. Overall, the PUD would allow for uses permitted by right in general commercial. To give some context, the community unit plan directly to the east of this, right at the corner of 53rd and Meridian, is general commercial based zoning with a community unit plan on top of restrictions and has a lot of extra rules. So it's not just straight up GC zoning. A lot of this PUD and the restricted uses and some of the allowable uses that are in here are actually fairly modeled off of what is existing in the community unit directly to the east. So it's very, it's not allowing for any new things for zoning that aren't already allowed in the general area. You can see the list of restricted uses in that paragraph there. For sake of time, I won't read them out loud. Particular use would require a conditional use in the typical zoning would require an amendment to the PUD. There are special, if you want to scroll down to the bottom of this page, there are specific uses that they identify, one being an entertainment establishment, nightclub in the city, and drinking establishment. Those would typically require conditional uses. They want to permit them by right in the PUD. They have specifics related to where they're allowed, hours of operation that are in the text, and this is where it's important to talk about. This was a standard zoning case for going to limited commercial. Any one of those 3 would be required to have a conditional use if you're within 300 feet of a public church, place of worship, school, or residence. The way that it's written is those would be from surrounding the PUD. But if a church or public park are, I'm sorry, church or school were to be developed within the PUD, then those restrictions don't apply. So essentially, like, you knew what you were getting into.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. There's established uses that are surrounding it, but if something new comes in the middle and the zoning is already established, you know what you mean. Thank you, Mr. Washburn. You're hired. You'll do the next 3. No. One of the things that was a difference between staff recommendation and the applicant request, and again, NAPC went with the staff recommendation, is that they didn't want the general commercial zoning to the east if it was developed with residential uses. That huge general commercial parcel to the east is undeveloped at this time, and the CUP allows for residential uses to be there. Nobody really knows what's going to be there. By to properties to the north and the south, but not to the east. When it came to imposing those 300-foot restriction, staff wanted to include the east. The reason we included the north is because there's single-family homes and duplexes in limited commercial zoning. So we wanted to protect them because their zoning essentially doesn't protect them from certain things. And of course, to the south is single-family residential zoning. It's the moorings. So there's really no question there. So the staff recommendation includes that a entertainment establishment, nightclub in the city, or tavern, if it's within 300 feet of property to the east, if the east develops as an apartment, then that 300 feet would apply. Would have to be farther than 300 feet to the east. Of course, if one establishes in this PUD first and then they develop later, that's different because this one happened first. I have provided hours of operation to say that outdoor entertainment was ceased by 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, at midnight Friday and Saturday. They put a caveat to say that all windows, doors, and movable barriers from indoors outdoor spaces would have to close at that time, and all of the entertainment would have to be indoors. So to your point about garage doors opening up and stuff, this is anticipating if, they don't necessarily have a planned use for this site yet, but if an establishment had roll-up doors or windows they open to connect your indoor and outdoor spaces, at those hours of operation, all of that would have to move inside and all of those apparatus would have to shut to keep all the entertainment inside from that time on. So you bring up a very good. So it doesn't mean that the entertainment ceases, it just has to move all the way inside and everything has to shut. Area ratios are set at reasonable standards. There's a discussion about setbacks in the staff report, and essentially the largest setbacks are along the south, which is where they're closest to single family zoning. The single family uses on the north side, they're across 53rd and 53rd at some point, hopefully will get bigger. That's kind of been the general theme of some people's concern is it's only 2 lanes right now. But when this property gets platted, they're going to be dedicating additional right of way. And maybe at some point in the future, the CIP would include additional setback on this property needs to be done because you have the street right of way in between. There's compatibility setbacks written into the PUD that are reasonable as well. Compatibility height standards. They're kind of custom with both of these things, but they're reasonable in terms of why they're customized for where they have to apply and where they don't apply. Let's get into screening. To page 4. Oh, you're right. You don't have a, yeah, my page 4. There you go. Go up. There you go. Along the south, you've got what will be effectively general commercial zoning in the PUD. Most of the barrier between this property and the residential properties in the south is actually a platted reserve. It's in the plat to the south of the moorings is in, but it's the same developer. That allow them to either do a 6 to 8 foot wall if they were to so choose along the whole property line, or actually do a landscape berm similar to Estancia, if you're familiar with that at K96 and Ridge. In that separate development, but the whole point of that reserve is to provide a buffer from these residential to whatever was going to happen on this property. And essentially it was planned there because it's been the same developer and they knew they were going to come and do some type of commercial on the property that we're speaking of. And so there's flexibility within the PUD standards to give them choices. When you get farther to the west where parcel 15 is, that reserve goes away, but there are still screening requirements in there that meet the general standards of the code. One of the things that's written in the PUD is that if they do the berm in the residential reserve, they have to have an agreement between the property owners if it ever sells to make sure that that's maintained. And
How do you
essentially,
keep on this straight?
worked through it quite a bit. Like this was one of those where we're able to work with the agent kind of before it went to planning commission, not necessarily to rubber stamp it, but because it was new, we went through initial comments. They revised some things that didn't necessarily matter. And so this one kind of was massaged and we didn't always agree on everything. But we kind of came to some semblance before they went.
Is this team available for an Iran agreement?
Cover the maintenance on the reserve, is that not already covered in the development standards for the?
It is, but in case this commercial property sells to somebody else and therefore, because the reserve would be part of the moorings development, part of their, like the development agreement or the maintenance agreement, essentially put the responsibility of the maintenance of this required screening on the back of the commercial property where it needs to be. They don't want to have the moorings build the berm and then this commercial property go and the berm falls into disrepair and now you actually aren't meeting your screening requirement and not have property
Sure.
would be on the hook for it.
Sure.
So, yeah. And at a minimum, if the berm falls into disrepair and there's an enforcement case, they could just be required to go in and put it in the wall. So there's options. The berm has actually started in construction in certain places as homes have been developed in this part of the mooring. So actually we'll see it in different places that it's already going up. Landscaping would be per the code, lighting would be per the code, 15 feet within residential zoning with residential uses. And our staff recommendation is that it's based on just residential uses. Again, with the concerns of the properties to the north that are in limited commercial. That way, if there's parking lots along 53rd, the height of those light poles would have to be shorter across from those properties. Signage is basically for the code. It allows for 3 additional identification signs like you see in major shopping centers where you have your tenant signs along the road, and then at your entrance you have your New Market Square sign. The area of those identification signs and the number of those identification signs will count against the total counts for the signage, but they have so much signage available, like 3,000 feet of frontage, that it really is not necessarily going to impact, and they were agreeable to that as well. There's a provision in there that will prohibit any building signs on the south buildings on parcels 4, 8, 12, and 15, unless they're 150 feet from the property. You're within 150 feet, LC to SF5, you're not allowed to have a lit building sign. Parking metering, some of the code here too. Parking would be per the code. There's a system that's required within this PUD. They're shown in context as a mixture of commercial and residential. We've kind of covered a lot of it. The only thing covered is more on the western side. You've got properties in the county, and there's an SF side of 53rd, and some of them are undeveloped. One of them has a house. Some have some quasi, maybe illegal commercial activity going on that we're aware of. Side is the river, and I'm not going to pronounce it, so I'll hijack the meeting.
Arkansas.
I can get behind
Yeah,
that.
you know, you
I
might
can get behind
There's some case history on this. There was a time when zone changes, even establishing CUPs on them, were tied to platting. This actually had a zone change to commercial with a CUP quite a while ago, and it was tied to platting within 1 year. There were several platting extensions. Platting extensions expired, and so actually that zoning never took effect. Here we are now, and it's essentially doing the same thing, but we're not tied to platting anymore. They will have to plat the property. The zoning change can be perfected even if the property is not platted. It is 2-lane city arterial. This whole property was recently annexed and included annexation of the city of the right of way into the city as well. There's been an ongoing coordination between the city and the county during annexation. It's likely why the CIP hasn't thought of cases for future expansion in 53rd is because it's not recently been in the city. The majority of it along this property is 2 lanes with open ditches. You start getting closer to the intersection, it balloons up, it gets a little bit larger. There are some sidewalks on the north side for a portion of it, along where the residential properties are. Something that's interesting is the Walmart zoning with the community unit plan actually is required to provide the financing for some improvements on 53rd when it's merited for like a stoplight. So it's actually kind of interesting that as improvements come along 53rd, there are actually properties tied to being responsible for paying for them. One of them is a light on 53rd at a major entrance somewhere as determined by the traffic engineer. So that's actually something good to know about is it's not necessarily guarantee the expansion of it, but if traffic merits a stoplight somewhere on 53rd at one of the entrances to the shopping center, if it's approved, there's actually a different property where they have to pay for it. The comprehensive plan identifies the site as new residential employment mix, and agriculture vacant. The ag and vacant part of it is actually on the extreme western side next to the river. The other 2 support that mix of residential and commercial though it talks about new residential, there's a caveat in the locational guidelines that talk about that residential or commercial uses can be within this category based on market-driven factors. This isn't necessarily a commercial corridor, but essentially this could be the zone change that creates this portion of 53rd into the commercial corridor. And that's essentially what we're grappling with is, you know, there's a lot of things that talk about, oh, these types of things should only happen at commercial corridors. Well, when does something become a commercial corridor unless it's allowed to be? Doesn't mean it's all going to develop commercially. Again, the PUD allows for multifamily residential. They're wanting to kind of zone it to allow them to morph and move based on market-driven factors over the years. Overall, staff is recommending approval. We had one person speak at Planning Commission with concerns about traffic increases, given its Chinland status now, and we told them that every year the CIP is updated. Just because it's not in this year doesn't mean it wouldn't necessarily be in years come. Other than that, we didn't hear from anybody. Again, Planning Commission recommended approval per the staff recommendation, which is in your staff report. That was a unanimous vote. There were no protests filed on this property. That expired last Thursday. So we're here tonight before we take the final step to City Council. I will be very, very quick on the site pictures. It's mostly open land. Yeah, so you can go pretty quickly. It's, yeah. Looking south at the property as we go west, and then we can come back looking east, or coming to the east looking to the north. So it's, as you can see, pretty undeveloped. You can go to the next page. This is the north side as we start coming back east. Yep, go down. This is one of the residential houses in the technically county in SF20. That's one of the quasi-commercial, we don't really know what's going on, but we're aware of properties. These are the single family homes in limited commercial zoning, and then the other side of it are the duplexes in limited commercial zoning as we get closer to the Walmart property. Next property. Looking to the northeast, that's the Walmart property everybody's familiar with. This is in the moorings on the street looking north, so you can kind of see the berm going up and down on the side of this property looking north towards the site. The same thing here, you know, as home sites are beating, you can start seeing that berm going up behind those properties as well. And the last couple pictures, go to the bottom one. This is a step street. They're not required to connect to the step street during platting. It is allowed to dead end at this one because there's a whole thing about incompatible land uses where you don't necessarily want commercial traffic flooding into the neighborhood to get out. So with that, I can stand for any questions.
Very thorough.
We have the applicant and agents here as well, if you have any specific questions for them.
Just a curiosity that you guys were able to bring this together with and reach some kind of mutual baseline to pull forward with. I was a little concerned when I looked at the reported word, it typed, but it makes sense now.
Any questions from the public?
I'll just, since we sat here all night and enjoying our presence. I'm back, MKEC Engineering, 411 North Webb Road, on behalf of the owner and applicants who are here. And we've been doing this a long time, so we appreciate staff's willingness to work together closely with us to make a long-term product that will serve this area. And I think that's probably it'll take a long time to develop 75 acres in my mind, but you know, maybe something could happen and some things move along faster. But you know, there'll be a lot of changes here over the years. It was what I would predict. But we're pleased to have approval tonight, so we can continue moving forward with the next steps of this project and process. But we are in agreement with staff comment as and the staff report as presented.
Do you and you people that are doing this, that most of that would be residential, similar to what we see south there, until you get to 53rd, and then it would become more commercial? kind of things?
Yeah, I can speak to that. What you see on Crystal Beach Street there is an existing street, and those lots are being actively developed. And north of there is a reserve that carries both drainage, and then we'll have, yeah, oh yeah, thank you. And then we'll have a berming area there, which we talked about as well. But yeah, there'll be potential for different kinds of land uses there. It could be some residential, maybe more urban residential. It could be a senior housing development. It could be a lifestyle center. So there's just a lot of options, and you know, part of the zoning effort was to create as many options that's possible within reason that would fit within the area.
I've lived there all my life, so I'm very familiar with, used to be all wheatland, so.
Yeah.
I remember when they put the very first moorings section in there, and it's expanded significantly from that point, so.
So your intent would be to see what the community needs as time passes?
Yeah, it'll be a market-driven project, I'm sure, unless they just decide to go crazy and build something themselves. I don't
The
know.
community supports like a retail development, like in New Market Square or Bradley Fair, as well, so it could be one or the other or both.
Questions or anyone wants to entertain? Okay, thank you all for being here. We certainly appreciate it as you've learned through different cases tonight. We always appreciate when people are here answer questions. Do we have any, next month, we're gonna start meeting at 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. Is that good for everybody? Okay.
We're having a Tri neighborhood potluck Sunday.
Good night.
They kind of clean up the streets.
Sends an email, we're invited to tour Second Light next Wednesday, 5:30 to 6:30. I will be there.
What did you say?
5:30 to 6:30 next Wednesday. The tour of Second Light.
Oh, yeah.
I plan to be there too.
I was gonna be there, but I'm out.
There you go.
Yeah, stupid work. Thankful for work.
Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn, please.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Bye.
Terry, I bet you can remember when it was.
Yes, for sure.
Harvey Miller was running.